A large purple creature is caught in a trap, its legs tied tightly. A man hidden in the bushes reveals himself, pleased with his catch, saying, "Got ya. You fell right into my trap." He carries the creature over his shoulder, remarking it's been a while since he's had proper meat. Behind him, a massive boar with glowing red eyes follows closely. The boar charges fiercely, breaking branches as the man narrowly dodges. The beast devours the captured creature, growling possessively about its precious meat. The man, sweating and catching his breath, reflects bitterly on his harsh reality, wondering why he ended up living in such a hellish place. Acknowledging the devil's realm won't be easy. The scene shifts to a town where a young man talks with an older man smoking a pipe. The young man anxiously asks about land he had his eyes on for a long time. The older man informs him the land was sold 4 days ago, and the coins the young man saved for years are now useless. The young man, shocked, asks if there is any other good land available, while the older man comments on the coins being dirty. The older man explains that land like that is hard to come by, especially since the young man only has 5 gold coins. The young man insists any land would be fine, even if it means building a place to sleep without a house. He pleads for help finding something, willing to live with some inconvenience for now. The older man, after a pause, agrees to help. The older man reveals a large, unexplored forest surrounded by mountains, cliffs, and the sea, available for exactly 5 coins. The young man, sweating and tense, learns no one has set foot there before, and there's no information on it, despite the land being quite far from town. He insists there's nothing left to lose and declares he'll take it. The young man reflects on his past, admitting he never had any talents. At 15, he was kicked out of his house and became an adventurer simply because it seemed cool. However, reality was harsh. He faced cold stares and rejection, and the adventurer life wasn't as glamorous as he imagined. He admired high-ranking adventurers but saw most lacked combat skills and barely survived. Like them, he did odd jobs and wasted his savings on fleeting pleasures, without talent as a merchant or artisan. He even considered quitting, feeling hopeless as things only worsened. Then he remembers that, even if not as skilled as others, he is the son of a farmer with determination. After 3 years, he managed to save 5 coins. Now, carrying his gear, he declares he finally has his own land and is ready to start a new life. A soldier from the Kingdom of Estonia warns the young man that nothing lies ahead except their training facility. The young man calmly reveals he bought the land beyond. Shocking the soldiers, one asks if he means the practically unexplored territory known as the demonic realm. He then requests to see the young man's adventurer card. The card is shown, explaining that it records the adventurer's name and rank, with the card's material and color changing as the rank improves. The young man admits his card has remained at the lowest class without change. The soldiers react with disbelief, questioning if he's serious. They advise him to learn survival skills in the nearby forest before entering the dangerous Devil's Nest. The young man, feeling mocked, wonders if he's being made fun of. He ventures into the forest, observing that the deeper parts are now his land. He notes with surprise that the demonic realm isn't as monster-infested as he feared and finds it quite peaceful. Suddenly, a wild bear and a Vespa hornet appear, roaring and attacking aggressively. The young man screams in shock, realizing he wouldn't stand a chance if he fought them now. The bear and hornet clash fiercely, their battle intense and chaotic. The bear swipes wildly, and the hornet dodges, both locked in combat. The young man watches anxiously from the bushes, heart pounding. As the fight ends, the hornet and bear lie defeated, and he cautiously steps out, asking if it's finally over. The young man reflects on his unexpected luck despite fearing giant monsters, and decides to gather materials. He finds a magic stone along with arthropod eyes and feathers. He recalls that each monster has a unique magic stone used to manipulate magic and abilities. He remembers that humans gather magic from nature and don't have magic stones in their bodies. Observing the dead hornet, he notices its venomous stinger is missing, questioning the magic stone's poison effect. Realizing this, he approaches a fallen bear, confirming his suspicion. The materials obtained include fur, meat, the hornet's poison stinger, and the bear's magic stone. He acknowledges the meat was poisoned and plans to cut, skin, and dry the fur, feeling accustomed to this from his butcher experience. After 3 more days deep in the forest, he finally arrives at his destination, a place he recognizes with a mix of relief and pride. Standing before a vast mountain, he declares the land as his own. He notes the river marking the boundary and observes the ecosystem beyond it is clearly different, affirming his claim and the unique nature of his territory. The vast mountain landscape stretches out under a bright sky, birds flying overhead as the man steps confidently into a shallow stream. He declares that anything will do and urges himself to take the first step into this new life. his expression shifting to surprise as he reacts to something unexpected. Suddenly, his foot sinks into the water, disturbed by a strange movement. A slime-like creature emerges, its eerie form pulsating as it faces him. The man, sweating but composed, decides to confirm his suspicion aloud, asking the creature if it is indeed a slime. The man grips his hoe, preparing to strike a slime, but he feels lightheaded and wonders if his magic is drained. He reminds himself to aim for the slime's core with a ranged weapon to defeat it. Swinging, he misses and the hoe dissolves completely, leaving him frustrated. He glares determinedly, then throws a spear-like weapon at the slime's core. The slime shudders and the weapon pierces it, spraying slime onto his face. He spits it out, relieved and excited, realizing he succeeded. Catching his breath, he notes the materials gained. The slime's magic stone of unknown effect and a wasted bear pelt. He doubts the profit but pushes aside discouragement. Deciding to set up camp before dark, he surveys the forest, noting unfamiliar plants and contemplates making a makeshift tent from branches and leaves. Examining various plants, he cuts a palm leaf, noting slimy liquid oozing out. He then cuts bendgrass and butterbur, surprised as water sprays from the cut end. Observing the forest around him, he appears thoughtful, taking in the new environment. He notices a flower field in the jungle and wonders about its presence. His gaze falls on a monster's skeletal corpse lying among the flowers, unsettling him, despite the unease. He decides to set up camp first and deal with the corpse later, feeling that something about this place is dangerous. Night falls as he completes his makeshift shelter and lights a fire. He reflects on how things are slowly coming together but admits his hunger, grateful for the wild bear meat he managed to get. He takes a bite while contemplating the difficulty of surviving in this forest. He resolves to start investigating the plants and animals tomorrow while organizing his life. Suddenly, glowing eyes appear in the darkness. Catching his attention, shocked, he recognizes the size and glow. Realizing it could be the legendary green tiger, the tiger emerges from the shadows, its presence imposing and tense. Remembering a warning from a woman that encountering one unarmed means certain death, he braces himself as the tiger approaches. He throws poisoned meat at it, hoping to fend it off. The tiger pauses, confused by the unexpected offering, turning its head to inspect the meat carefully. The tiger's glowing eyes lock onto him, its growl deep and menacing. He winces, realizing the poisoned meat isn't working at all. Desperation rises as the tiger charges forward, and he braces himself, shouting that it's coming. He swings his weapon wildly through the dense foliage, trying to fend off the attack. The tiger roars ferociously, jaws wide open, inches from his face. Panic overtakes him as he screams in terror, sweat pouring down his face. The tiger's claws scrape the ground, closing in relentlessly. The tiger suddenly tumbles to the ground, rolling over with a thud. Relief floods him as he smiles, acknowledging his strike hit right on target. The tiger snarls and roars, but he wastes no time, turning to flee deeper into the forest. Collapsing against a tree, he covers his face, overwhelmed by the terror of the encounter. He curses his luck, lamenting the hopelessness of his situation on the very first day of his new life. Hearing the sounds grow louder nearby, he peers cautiously from behind the tree, realizing the danger is closing in fast. He admits defeat, knowing he can't win this fight and must run away before it's too dangerous. Resolving to abandon the place, he decides to return to the village and quietly start over. The thought of starting over weighs heavily on him as he wonders what he can even do now. Memories flash of being dismissed as an amateur, told he's in the way and unwanted. A woman questions how long he plans to cling to the town, while he recalls the boredom of pointless adventurer jobs. Sweat drips down his face as he accepts that running won't improve anything. With no other choice left, he steels himself to face what comes next. Sitting with his axe resting beside him, he reflects that this wasteland is all he has left. Suddenly, a voice calls out to him from the forest. He hides behind a tree, eyes wide as a tiger prowls nearby, growling low and watching intently. The tiger snarls and bares its teeth, its gaze sharp and alert. It sniffs at a piece of meat lying on the ground, then turns its head sharply toward the sound of the call, sensing something nearby. The tiger prowls through a forest blanketed with flowers under the moonlight, its gaze sharp and alert. The man, perched in a tree above, anxiously predicts the tiger's approach, knowing that if he is wrong, he will die here. The tiger snarls fiercely, signaling its imminent arrival as it circles below. The man grips his axe tightly, eyes wide with tension as the tiger lunges upward, claws extended toward him in a deadly attack. He braces himself, narrowly avoiding the tiger's snapping jaws and powerful swipe. The tiger's fierce roar echoes as it lands among the flowers, tumbling and rolling in the petals. The man watches cautiously from his perch, sweat dripping down his face as the tiger begins to relax, yawning and settling down. Relief washes over the man's face as he realizes the flower garden is a natural trap with sleep-inducing properties. He covers his mouth and nose, careful not to inhale the mysterious white flower's potent effect. With a newfound understanding, he prepares to use the garden's power to his advantage. The man triumphantly declares his victory, holding the severed head of the green tiger. A notification confirms the materials obtained. Green tiger's meat and a magic stone with an unknown effect. Night falls as a fire burns nearby. He recalls how hungry he was, feeling like he might die, and that he had been eating before the fight interrupted him. Attempting to eat the green tiger meat now, he grimaces and spits it out, unable to stomach it. Exhausted, he lies down on a bed of straw, lamenting his hunger and longing for something delicious. He acknowledges how tough survival is in this place but resolves to endure a little longer. Gazing at the night sky, he reflects bitterly that this harsh environment is his personal hell. The man finds himself in a bustling city street, overwhelmed by the crowd and the unfamiliar surroundings. He questions where he is and what is happening, struggling to comprehend the flood of people around him. His silhouette is cast in shadow as he wonders what kind of place this is, staring at a blank screen that reflects his confused face. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a forest where a loud, piercing scream echoes through the trees. The man, now in armor, jolts awake with wide eyes, drenched in sweat and clearly shaken. He sits up amid the dense foliage, alert and breathing heavily, as the eerie cries continue to reverberate nearby. Standing alone in the wilderness, the man looks out at the vast mountains and dense forest, his figure glowing faintly. He questions the meaning of the dream he just had, trying to piece together its significance while surrounded by nature's quiet expanse. His abandoned belongings lie scattered on the ground, emphasizing his isolation and confusion. Stretching and yawning, the man reflects that this dream has haunted him since childhood, wondering where that place truly is. Suddenly, a slime creature slithers over his bag, causing him to panic as it damages his belongings. He reacts quickly, grabbing a nearby axe and striking the slime in frustration, desperate to protect what little he has. He strikes the slime with his axe and breathes a sigh of relief when his bag remains unharmed. Wondering if he's getting stronger, adjusting his gear, he steels himself and declares it's time to continue exploring this hell. Walking through the dense forest, he reminds himself this is his land and resolves to at least know where everything is. Suddenly, his eyes widen in shock as he spots a lamia resting nearby, its upper body that of a woman and lower body a snake. Approaching the lamia, he notes she looks dead, but recalls the poisoned stinger of a Vespa hornet lodged inside her mouth. Realizing the meat he used as bait yesterday contained poison needles, he feels lucky and begins removing the lamia's magic stone from her body. Venturing deeper into the swayman grass, he spots mushrooms and wonders if they are edible, but quickly dismisses the thought, reminding himself it's too dangerous to approach plants in this hell without careful consideration first. He proudly holds up a green-colored rat he just caught, deciding to call it a forest rat. Tossing the rat aside, it lands near a cluster of mushrooms. Suddenly, a cloud of spores bursts from the mushrooms, filling the air with a thick mist. The rat collapses, paralyzed by the spores. He watches closely, realizing the rat isn't moving anymore. Lightning-like effects surround the rat, confirming the spore's paralyzing effect. Sweat beads on his face as he acknowledges this is another natural trap from the strange plants. His eyes widen in alarm as he realizes it's a trap. He braces himself, determined to survive despite lacking proper combat training. He digs furiously, knowing this is the only way to fight the monsters. After finishing the hole, he prepares to place the swayman flower and mushroom inside it, covering the trap carefully. Exhausted, he collapses nearby, refusing to move another step today and lamenting his hunger. Night falls over the forest as he hopes to catch something big tomorrow. Suddenly alert, he stands and decides to investigate the strange noises coming from the forest, steeling himself for whatever lies ahead. He gasps in shock at the enormous wild boar lying asleep before him. Despite its size, he warns himself not to get careless, noting the beast is sleeping but still far too big to handle. Determined, he grips his axe and decides to finish the job, knowing butchering this giant will take an entire day. As he cuts into the boar, a blue snake suddenly slithers out from its stomach, startling him and making him cover his mouth in disbelief. He wonders about the strange ecosystem that allows such creatures to coexist. Night falls as he rests against the massive carcass, exhausted but satisfied. He reflects on the materials gained: fangs, fur, meat, and a magic stone, and finally enjoys a rare, proper meal, savoring the taste with a grateful smile. Noticing his axe and knife have dulled beyond use, he examines sturdy bones from the carcass and decides to craft new weapons. After shaping a bone into a makeshift blade, he holds it up, questioning if it will be good enough for the challenges ahead. He swings the makeshift bone sword, noting it's heavy but manageable, pouring tree sap into a clay mold. He explains it will harden like stone. Gripping the finished axe, he declares both weapons complete: the tree sap axe and the wild boar bone sword. Dawn breaks as he looks up in surprise. Realizing morning has come, he reflects on how absorbed he was in crafting that he didn't feel tired. While setting a new trap, he notes finishing faster than the day before and wonders why. Questioning if he's grown stronger or if it's just familiarity, he admits uncertainty. He considers that the meat he ate might have boosted his strength, but he's never been able to get stronger before. Despite the doubt, he accepts this new state as his current reality. The next day, he ventures into the wilderness again. Approaching a cliffside, he spots a dark cave entrance and exclaims his discovery. The cave's shadowy mouth beckons as he prepares to explore further. He notices a wall torch and wonders if someone lives here. Stepping inside the cave, he politely announces his presence. The interior reveals a carved-out space with a table, but it seems deserted. He senses traces of past inhabitants but no current ones. He ventures deeper into the cave, holding his torch as shadows flicker on the walls. Suddenly, his ears catch a sound, and he turns sharply. He discovers a skeleton seated in a chair, dressed in tattered robes, clutching a book. The man freezes, sweat forming as he stares at the skeletal figure. The skeleton's bony hand moves to open the book, revealing the letters P.J. On the cover, the man stumbles back, groaning in discomfort as the eerie scene unfolds. Gathering courage, he picks up the book and flips through it. It's a diary filled with records of monsters, edible plants, and medicinal herbs. Realizing its importance, he notes it contains vital survival information for this area. His eyes widen as he examines a detailed, mysterious page, questioning what it means. The book reveals cryptic notes about a guardian fighting something in ruins within the demonic realm, but no specifics are given. It warns that neither brute force nor magic will work, and mastery of space-time magic is essential. Ancient magic circles surpass modern knowledge, and a gigantic monster appears every 3 months. The man realizes that PJ was researching this place but struggles to understand the findings. He reads a regretful note from PJ, admitting failure to solve the mystery of these lands, which deepens the man's contemplation as he looks toward a stone marked with PJ. Reflecting on the grave, he silently wishes the deceased to rest in peace. The warehouse nearby contains unfamiliar metals, knives, and armor. Seemingly crafted by the fallen adventurer himself, the man wonders how such a skilled adventurer met his end. Despite his curiosity about PJ, he accepts some mysteries must remain unsolved. Grateful to have found the cave, he notes its untouched interior and considers it a relatively safe place. With resolve, he decides to move in, setting off energetically toward the cave. He envisions making a home around the cave as a base, imagining it eventually becoming a beautiful place. His dreams for this place are expanding. He decides to start by tidying up the messy room, then plans to repair what can be salvaged and fill in what's missing using available materials. After working, he steps back and declares the space good enough for now. He cheerfully announces his return to his new home, though he acknowledges no one is there to welcome him. Still, he reflects that being free from troublesome human relationships suits him just fine. 2 armored soldiers, tense and sweating, urge each other to seize the chance and finish off a wild bear threatening their path. One wonders aloud why such a beast would be here. The bear roars fiercely, blocking their way in the dense forest, despite one soldier's doubt about their chances. The captain insists they must act quickly or the bear might reach the main road. With determination, he rallies them to fight. Suddenly, a cloaked figure steps forward, catching the soldiers off guard as he calmly says, "Excuse me." The soldiers, wary and confused, question who he is and if he's just a civilian. The stranger points out that even strong warriors can't take on a wild bear in this cursed land. He offers to help take it down, surprising the soldiers. The cloaked man and the soldiers engage the bear together. The bear roars and swings its massive limbs, but the cloaked figure expertly dodges its powerful attacks, avoiding the tough skull and aiming for its softer, vulnerable spots. His movements are precise and calculated, evading the bear's deadly strikes. With a swift, decisive strike, the cloaked man slashes the bear's neck, cutting deep and causing a spray of blood. The bear lets out a final roar as it collapses, defeated. The man remains poised and calm, having ended the threat with skill and confidence. The The soldiers stare in shock as a cloaked man greets them calmly, asking if they are from the training facility. He inquires if they have seeds for wheat or vegetables, hoping to exchange them for monster meat or magic stones. One soldier, still wary, asks who exactly he is. The man suggests they return to the facility to find some seeds, and the soldiers begin to warm to the idea. The man adds that if possible, he would also like to exchange for charcoal and paper. He reveals he has gathered a lot of supplies. Walking through the forest, he hums cheerfully, admitting he's used to life in this cursed land but still has many places to explore and maps to make. He notes the soldier seemed quite surprised by him. Reflecting on his strength, he wonders when he became so powerful, realizing it was forced by living in a cursed land surrounded by tough enemies. As he walks along a river, he suddenly remembers he hasn't bathed in a while and hopes he doesn't stink too much. After bathing in the river, he sighs with relief, feeling refreshed, standing before a small fenced patch of land. He notes he has vegetable seeds and thinks it might be time to start serious farming. Raising his hoe with determination, he acknowledges he has a lot to do, but suddenly loses his balance, falling backward in surprise. A massive turtle emerges, towering over the trees, startling the man who exclaims at its size. He urgently warns the creature not to come near, fearing it will ruin his farm. Desperately, he shouts for it to get away as the turtle advances, causing him to stumble back in frustration. The man falls into the mud with a splash, cursing his bad luck. He laments that he just washed up before this happened. The turtle watches silently, tilting its head in confusion, clenching his axe. The man vows he won't forgive the turtle and prepares to strike. The turtle slowly lifts a leg, readying itself. The man approaches cautiously, axe raised, but the turtle suddenly lunges forward with a powerful roar. He narrowly avoids the attack, splashing through the swamp, catching his breath. He admits he got caught in the swamp and fell, realizing that if this continues, he'll end up as the turtle's meal. Sitting down with a satisfied smile, the man enjoys a meal, noting the meat is delicious and the soup made from it irresistible. He recalls a note from PJ's notebook about the turtle, named Hayes Turtle, which can become a pet once caught. He reflects that the turtle is considered very weak in the cursed land, leaving him thoughtful as he looks out over the dense forest. The man sets his sights firmly on the sea as today's exploration target. He notes that after preparing a lot of meat, he's nearly out of salt and regrets not asking the soldiers for some. While drawing maps, he searches for a river from the hilltop, hoping that following it will lead him to the sea. He surveys the landscape carefully, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. Spotting the sea, he feels a surge of hope, realizing that even in the cursed land, there is a proper end. He decides to collect salt from the seawater immediately. Suddenly, he notices something unusual on the beach and questions what it could be, disbelief creeping in as he approaches. His eyes widen as he discovers a figure lying on the shore, partially submerged in water. The man questions if it's a human, stunned by the unexpected sight. The figure's legs and feet, clad in sandals, lie still on the sand, water gently washing over them. Moving closer, he sees a young woman with horns asleep or unconscious on the beach. She stirs slightly, uttering a faint sound. His expression shifts to one of surprise and concern as he takes in the sight of this mysterious stranger washed ashore. The man questions if it's wrong to get involved as he sees the young woman barely holding on. Admitting he lacks the tools to treat her, he hesitates, conflicted about trespassing and dealing with demons in this territory. Resigned, he decides to pretend he saw nothing and focuses on making salt by the sea, sweating as he tends the fire and contemplates the situation. Panic rises as a terrifying roar echoes behind him. A massive dinosaur-like creature charges, forcing him to freeze in fear. He scolds himself, overwhelmed by the danger, gathering forest rat food with a pestle. He notes its terrible taste but acknowledges it restores energy. He carefully tends to the unconscious woman, applying the paste to her leg. As the sun sets, he admits he's done all he can and stresses the need to find food. He gazes toward the horizon, then prepares grilled giza crab, savoring the delicious meat and especially the miso. The night sky stretches over the quiet beach where they rest. The woman suddenly stands, rubbing her leg and saying it hurts. The man curses quietly, realizing he got caught up with the crab. Their eyes meet, and she eagerly offers him a piece of the crab, asking if he wants to eat it. She shakes her head playfully, her expression brightening as they share this quiet moment. The girl happily bites into a piece of crab, her eyes sparkling with delight, while the man watches her with a mix of surprise and concern. He warns her that this demonic realm is his precious land and demands she leave this cursed land called Makio promptly if she keeps eating it. She calls herself Makio, but he insists that's not her name. She shrugs off his correction, finding it too troublesome to argue. When he asks her real name, She cheerfully replies, "Share." He accepts, calling her Makio for now. She offers the last piece of crab, asking if he's still hungry. But he says there's none left. The girl repeats none quietly, her expression falling. He questions how she ended up here, and she ponders how to explain. She uses drawings to show a large conflict among demons. He reacts in shock at the scale. Realizing she escaped from something huge and dangerous, she admits she doesn't fully understand the situation herself. The man sits by a fire, boiling seawater to make salt, questioning his own actions. The girl gestures dramatically, casting a large magical spell. He gasps, overwhelmed by the sheer size of the magic. The fire blazes beneath the pot as the salt water boils, confirming the magic's power. The fire suddenly blazes fiercely, startling the man, who yells that it's burning. The girl looks on calmly, asking if he's going to tend the fire for her. He lies down, pondering how strange this all is. He wonders if she plans to stay in the demon realm and considers asking her to teach him magic as rent. The night sky stretches quietly above. The next morning arrives with bright sunlight on the shore. The girl clings playfully to the man, who looks tired and wonders what happened to tending the fire. He notices a large pile of salt in the pot, realizing things get done faster with two people. He gently wakes the girl and invites her to come to his house with him. She agrees with a sleepy nod. They walk through a dense forest as the man explains he will eventually have her build a boat to send her back, but will let her stay at his place for now. The girl excitedly calls out to a frog, then suddenly struggles to control it, revealing she lacks much energy. The man watches her with concern, noting her weakness. They arrive at a cozy cave-like home, reminding the man of his old self. Inside, the girl's eyes sparkle with delight as he welcomes her home. She beams happily while he looks exhausted but relieved, announcing his return. The girl bursts into the cave, gleefully declaring she's home, startling the man, who insists this is his house. She eagerly shows him around, explaining the fireplace is for baking bread and the caged forest rat is for experiments. He warns her not to touch his things without permission. Noticing her exhaustion, he observes she fell asleep in his sleeping spot after the long journey through the demon realm. The man reflects quietly, admitting he brought her on a whim, hoping she might be useful, but worries she could be a burden. He fears being arrested if suspected of harboring demons. He watches her sleeping face with a heavy heart, conflicted and silent. Resolving to send her back once she wakes, he admits he prefers living alone in the demon realm. Yet, he debates waking her now to explain everything properly, but decides to wait until morning. As he reaches out to wake her, he hesitates, calling her name softly. The girl murmurs faintly in her sleep, whispering the names Share, Frog, and Nun, which shocks the man deeply. He stares in stunned realization, slowly pulling down his collar as the weight of her words sinks in. He realizes she is trapped in the same predicament as him, no place to return to. His hand clenches tightly, glowing faintly with a strange light. She lies asleep, covered gently by a blanket. He reflects silently, acknowledging their shared fate. With this strange encounter, a peculiar life begins in the cursed land, binding a human and a demon together. Makio gasps for breath, sweat pouring down her face as she struggles to keep up. The man calls out her name with concern, watching her pant heavily while leaning on a staff. He warns her she lacks stamina, telling her she won't survive in the demon land without it. Suddenly, a large bird charges at her, causing her to flail and nearly fall. The man watches with a tired but calm expression. He admits she's too much of a burden to explore properly, then decides to train her. Cher looks puzzled but listens intently as he explains his plan. He instructs her to catch as many forest rats as possible nearby, setting the first step of her training. Makio lunges clumsily at the forest rats, knocking some over but failing to catch them. Despite the struggle, she manages to catch a small coil of rope, smiling with tears in her eyes at the small victory. The man contemplates the next phase, deciding on combat training as the sun begins to set behind the trees. She unleashes a massive fireball, startling the man, who warns her not to waste such a huge attack. He advises her to aim carefully and keep her fireballs compact. As a large, intimidating bear-like creature approaches, he urges her to shoot now, warning that carelessness will mean death. She closes her eyes nervously, preparing to fire again. The man yells at her to focus, questioning where she's aiming as her fireball explodes near the bear. She struggles to control multiple smaller fireballs. Crying out in frustration, the bear roars fiercely, but the man calmly notes she actually hit it. Both watch with surprise and relief. She beams with pride, standing confidently while the man looks annoyed, asking why she's so proud of herself. The sun sets as distant cries echo through the forest. He carries her on his back, lamenting how long it took just to catch one emerald monkey and how bleak their future looks. A fire crackles nearby, emphasizing the somber mood. Sitting by the campfire, the man turns to her and quietly asks Cher to teach him magic. She looks up at him, surprised but attentive. Their hands move together, fingers intertwining as she begins to demonstrate. His eyes widen in astonishment as he senses a flow of energy between their hands. He realizes magic power is transferring both ways, from her to him and back again. The glowing particles swirl around them as he fully grasps the magic's presence. Locking eyes with her in awe, the man senses something strange and uneasy. The woman's expression shifts from alert to calm. Then suddenly she bursts out, demanding to know what's wrong. He nervously asks her what's happening as she angrily stomps and smashes a pile of donuts nearby, leaving him bewildered. Sitting quietly, the man realizes his magic power is surprisingly high, though he hasn't been using magic in combat. The woman looks down, lamenting the waste of such power. He ponders that his strength might have grown from training in the demon land, then confidently declares he can at least use basic life magic. The woman exhales deeply, startled by his words. He focuses intently, trying to visualize magic, summoning a small flame on his fingertip. He reflects that magic relies on visualization, though it's small and slow, and not suited for combat. The forest around them remains silent as he experiments with the flow of magic. The man declares their plan to defeat as many monsters as possible while training before heading back. A peculiar bird calls out from a tree. They decide to take the cliff route, but when the woman hesitates, he suggests she fly with wind magic. She admits difficulty controlling magic power, so he tells her she'll have to climb on her own. The man tells her she's noisy but insists this is part of the training. Suddenly, a giant moth appears, chasing the woman who screams in fear. He encourages Cher to try defeating it alone. The woman quickly shifts into a battle stance, focusing intently. She begins to summon magic as the moth approaches, its wings shimmering ominously. The man watches, surprised and alert. The woman is suddenly struck by paralysis powder, her body stiffening as electricity-like energy crackles around her. The man realizes what happened and reacts swiftly, dodging the moth's attack as it lunges toward them. He shrugs and prepares to continue the fight despite the setback. The man asks Cher if she's okay as she trembles from paralysis. She weakly mentions Makio while he holds up the magic stone from the giant moth. He wonders if she wants it as a staff or just the stone and promises to make one for her. Cher sits quietly, gripping the newly crafted staff. The narration reveals the staff's paralysis effect. Cher joyfully raises the staff, declaring victory. The narration marks this moment as the start of her triumphant march. She shouts a battle cry and unleashes an attack on a large insect, electricity crackling around it. The man acknowledges the success with a simple nice. The man marvels at their combo of paralysis and attack magic as Cher casts a fiery spell. The moth is blasted away. Cher dances happily with her staff, while the narration explains they hunted monsters with this paralysis combo for several days. Scenes show them fighting various creatures, including a giant snail. The man reflects silently, noting how they've adapted to the demon land and their movements have changed. Cher, moving swiftly, calls out to Makio. Suddenly, they spot a group of imps perched on a tree branch. Cher prepares to engage, but the man calls out to stop her, wary of the group. The man warns to back off, noting there are too many imps. Electricity crackles around the flying demons as they fall from the tree branches. The forest rustles ominously, catching their attention. Both exchange a tense glance, sensing something approaching. A massive, ancient tree with a grotesque, humanoid face looms before them, emitting a deep, resonant sound. Its twisted limbs stretch wide, casting a shadow over the forest floor. The eerie noise continues, filling the air with dread. The tree's monstrous form dominates the scene as the man and Cher stand before it. Ready but wary, the ominous sound echoes through the canopy, and the forest seems to hold its breath. They prepare for an inevitable confrontation with the living tree. Cher urgently casts a spell, and the tree's face is struck by a fiery explosion. The man shouts that it's a tree ant, warning that they are not opponents they can defeat. He grabs Cher, urging her to run as the Trent's glowing eyes fixate on them. The man carries Cher on his back as the Trent's massive limbs lash out violently. They leap away just in time, narrowly avoiding the sweeping branches. He steadies himself, gripping his spear tightly, ready for the next attack. Cher clings to him, struggling as the paralysis spell she cast begins to take hold on the tree ant. The tree's face contorts in pain and rage, its movements slowing. The man and Cher exchange alarmed looks, realizing the spell's effect is working. The man, still carrying Cher, warns her to stay back despite her insistence. He urges her to run, even if it's just one step faster. Cher looks back anxiously as the tree ant advances, its twisted limbs reaching out. The tray ant stands ominously in the forest clearing, its face grim and unyielding. The man's determined eyes widen as he braces for the next move. The tension in the air thickens as the confrontation escalates. The man carries Cher on his back, both tense as they leap away from the tray ant. His eyes widen in shock and confusion as he utters, question mark. They crash to the ground, breathless and exhausted. The tray ant stands firm, its limbs still moving ominously. Both catch their breath, staring up at the towering tree. The man turns to Cher, asking if the magic that slowed the tray ant was hers. She nods, and he wonders aloud if he used some kind of magic himself. His thoughts drift to a mysterious board from his dreams, which helped him visualize magic instinctively. Cher places her hand on his head, casting recovery magic that begins to heal him. He thanks her and asks how to perform such magic. Cher cheerfully admits she has no idea what it means, leaving him both relieved and puzzled. He concentrates, attempting to channel magic through a knife, but the blade bursts into flames, burning his arm. He realizes that a knife made of coconut resin is useless for magic. He reflects on trying various demon materials like beetle horns and pincers, but none fit quite right, just like in the past. Suddenly, Cher calls out that the food is ready. He clenches his fist, preparing to cast magic again. He slams his fist into the ground, creating a massive crater. His eyes widen in shock as Cher looks on with surprise. Cher questions the noise, wondering if it's magic unknown to the demon race. The man excitedly suggests he might have made an incredible discovery. Nearby, a cave entrance and a plate with two thick, layered sandwiches appear. The man scolds the bread on the plate, declaring it isn't proper cooking and insists he'll make something better. He sits by a stone oven while the girl watches. A steaming stack of freshly baked bread appears, and her eyes sparkle with delight as she exclaims how delicious it is. She happily munches on the bread, calling it yummy, while he smiles and confirms it's bread. He expresses relief that she likes it and explains how having extra hands helps with tasks like mapping the fields, yet he admits he'll eventually have to send her back to where she came from. They walk outside into the forest, agreeing to chop wood together for now. He promises to build a ship so she can return home whenever she wishes. The man swings an axe at a tree, acknowledging the difficulty of the task. He laments the lack of proper weapons, wishing they had metal swords instead of resin ones. Suddenly, he recalls a mysterious metal sword once possessed by someone named P.J. He plans to enchant it with wind magic. The sword gleams as he prepares to wield it. With a powerful swing, he strikes the tree, sending splinters flying and creating a whirlwind of motion. The force of his blow echoes through the forest as he pushes forward, demonstrating his strength and determination. The man reacts with shock, realizing the sword he's wielding is no good. He wonders if the magic conductivity is too high and decides P.J.'s belongings are too dangerous to use recklessly. The girl nervously laughs, sensing his hesitation. They examine the logs for the ship, but progress is slow. The man notes the wood isn't dry yet, so they can't do much until it dries. He considers practicing infusing magic into his body while warning the girl to be careful hunting demons. Time passes quickly as the man reflects on how focused work makes time fly. The girl cheerfully asks if he brought bread, and they share a relaxed moment by the campfire, embracing a simple life of eating when hungry and sleeping when tired. The man senses something odd, noisy and oddly cold. Suddenly, the girl is grabbed by a large claw, startling him as he turns to face the threat. A massive wyvern swoops down, gripping the man tightly in its clawed hand. Shock and alarm break across his face as he shouts, stunned by the sudden attack. The man recognizes the creature and calls out. Identifying it as a wyvern, he quickly assesses the danger, realizing they are too high in the sky to escape for now. Meanwhile, the girl watches with a mix of excitement and nervousness as the wyvern carries them through the air. The dragon screams in pain as Cher attacks it fiercely, clutching its wing. The man realizes Cher has launched the assault. Gritting his teeth, he grabs his sword, determined to fight back as he falls through the sky. He focuses, infusing his fist with earth magic, shattering the dragon's scales with a powerful strike, landing deftly on the dragon's back. He prepares for the next move as the beast roars in fury. Leaping into the air, he shouts a battle cry and slams his fist down on the dragon's head. The dragon spirals downward toward the mountains below. He braces himself, activating wind magic on his legs to slow the fall before impact. The dragon crashes into the rocky ground, sending debris flying. The man watches as Cher encases herself in a swirling sphere of water magic. Protecting herself, he admires her skill, calling it impressive as the battle rages on. The man grimly notes that the girl has drowned, his expression tense as he looks down at her limp form beside the fallen dragon. He kneels and forcefully expels water from her mouth, then braces himself, observing the rocky, barren landscape around them as the sun sets. The vast desert stretches out with nothing but stones and sand, and they have no belongings. A sudden sandstorm forces them to seek shelter among jagged rocks. The girl leans weakly against the man, sweating and burning with a high fever. He worries it might be a cold but doubts medicine can be found in such a desolate place, his concern deepening as he contemplates what to do next. Searching for answers, the man flips through a diary labeled PJ. Discovering a sketch of an imp demon described as having cold medicine properties due to a magic stone. He recalls that the imps were with a trey ant in the marshlands, far to the north. He finds a makeshift canopy made from a wyvern membrane, deciding it will provide shelter for a while. Determined, he infuses magic into his legs and bolts into a run, leaving a trail of dust behind him. The scene shifts to a dense forest where the trey ant stands, then back to the rocky desert as he sprints forward, urgency driving him onward. Two winged imps crouch over a glowing object, one exclaiming they found it. The man turns sharply, then lunges to strike one imp, who screams in pain. He kneels by the glowing demon stone, urgency in his thoughts to hurry. The stone pulses ominously as he focuses on it. The man stands before a massive, ancient trey ant who utters a deep room. He grimaces, acknowledging the challenge, then struggles to move a thick root. Frustrated by the delay, he mutters that he doesn't have time for this as he strains against the obstacle. His fist clenches tightly, crackling with energy. He commands the root to move, then punches it fiercely, shouting not to interfere. The impact shatters the wood, clearing his path as he charges forward. The man darts through the forest, dodging and weaving with fierce determination. The trent's deep voice echoes again, but he grits his teeth and clenches his flaming fist. His powerful punch sends a shockwave through the trees, the forest trembling under the force as the sky brightens with the coming dawn. The vast, rugged mountains stretch under a cloudy sky. A lone shelter stands with a figure resting beneath it. A woman gasps for breath, sweat streaming down her face as she struggles. Her eyes snap open, alert and tense, while a man nearby also sweats heavily, his expression serious and focused. The man greets with a tired smile, announcing his return and admitting exhaustion. The woman, coughing and weak, tries to speak his name. He offers her the demon stone, urging its immediate use. She coughs violently, leaning on her knees as he watches with concern. The woman examines the dark stone, puzzled by its strange appearance and wonders if it could be the cause of her cold. Her expression shifts from doubt to hopeful excitement. The man asks if it worked, and she beams with joy, exclaiming how amazing it is. He smiles back, pleased it was effective. The two walk side by side through a rocky canyon at sunset, the woman leaning on the man. He warns her not to cling too tightly, complaining that her horns hurt him when they bump. Their long shadows stretch behind them as they continue forward together. The dense forest stands silent and foreboding. A group of travelers, an armored woman, an old wizard with a staff, and a rugged warrior, advance cautiously through the trees. At the forefront, a determined young woman in armor grips her sword sheath tightly, her gaze steady as she declares, "So this is the demon land." A man contemplates working in the fields, considering using magic to draw water there. He asks if he should do some field work today. A young woman calls his name, pointing out people nearby. He looks puzzled as she directs his attention. A group of 6 armored and robed figures stand ready, weapons drawn. The man and the young woman crouch in the bushes, observing them. He wonders what they are doing and suggests watching them for a while. The group is seen from a distance atop a rocky hill. The group attacks a large slime monster, with one shouting to attack the core while circulating magic. The leader notes even ordinary slimes are surprisingly strong. The man watches intently as the battle unfolds, noticing chaotic tactics and the party struggling against the monsters. A giant snake appears, attacking the group, causing alarm. The man reflects on the chaotic tactics, questioning if this is normal. The party is exhausted, half running out of magic. The man, standing with the young woman, prepares to address them, saying he will say something as the landlord. The young woman looks on quietly. The man approaches a group and demands to know what they are doing here. The armored leader proudly introduces themselves as the adventure party White Lightning, claiming they came seeking battles with strong monsters and will eliminate all monsters in the land. The man calmly shows his adventurer card but warns them this is private property and entering without permission could cause trouble if they get hurt. The leader angrily retorts that they are a renowned party even in the city. The man advises them not to go deeper if they are struggling with slimes, warning it looks like they might die. The group turns to look as a large dragon-like creature appears nearby. The party members panic, shocked to see a pseudo-dragon. The man notes the monsters have escaped, The young woman with him quietly says they forgot about Makio. Nearby, Makio lies unconscious on the ground. The man and the young woman observe the unconscious cleric, pondering the situation. He thinks about taking the accumulated trade goods to the training facility and leaving the female cleric behind. The young woman agrees enthusiastically when he asks if they should go. He reminds her to cover her horns so they won't be noticed. She confirms her packing is complete. Sitting quietly with her gear, he channels magic into his legs, then bursts forward with energy, declaring their departure. Guards stand watch at the gate, and a man notices their exit with a serious expression. At the gate, the man greets them, recognizing their origin from the demon land and asking if the girl is his companion. He explains her oddness but praises her skills, saying they can double their usual trade profits. The man laughs, intrigued, as the girl quietly requests help for another girl who collapsed in the demon land. Inside, the man examines a finely crafted sword, impressed by its quality and the rare green tiger fang used. The young man explains he tried making a staff with magic stones but is unsure of the details. He requests metal swords, sewing and woodworking tools, women's clothing, and a spellbook on space-time magic if possible. The man considers the requests thoughtfully. The man wonders if such a spellbook exists and if it can be ordered from the capital city. He warns of counterfeit spellbooks and suggests it might be safer to search for it personally in the capital. The young man agrees to search for the spellbook himself. The man promises to send the clothes within a week, and the young man acknowledges the arrangement with a calm smile. The next day, the young man resolves to search for the ruins mentioned in P.J.'s notebook within the demon land. Though the exact location is not recorded, he admits he doesn't even understand the overall map of the demon land. The young woman cheers him on enthusiastically, while he clenches his fist, declaring that the treasures of ruins are a man's romance. They study a map, noting the west as the entrance to the demon land, the east as the sea where Cher was, the north as mountains and wilderness, and the south as unexplored. The man suggests heading south to investigate, and the woman agrees excitedly. They prepare to move forward, unaware of the large monstrous creatures nearby. Running through the terrain, they reach the edge of a vast desert beyond the forest. The man is surprised to find nothing but endless sand as far as the eye can see. Questioning if he missed the mark, the two watch the barren landscape with concern as distant figures appear uneasy. Suddenly, a massive, dark, spiked tail crashes into the desert sand nearby, sending dust flying. The two stand silently, staring at the enormous creature emerging in the desert, its presence overwhelming the vast emptiness around them. They stare in shock as a massive, dark, spiked tail crashes into the desert sand, sending dust flying. The woman gasps, overwhelmed by the sheer size, while the man questions what it could be. The man identifies the creature from his notebook as a sandworm, noting its enormous size but surprising classification as a weaker monster. The worm's huge, toothy mouth bursts from the sand, causing the woman to panic and the man to draw his sword with frustration. The man strikes the worm with his magic sword, but the blade barely affects it. He grimaces in disbelief as the worm's tough skin repels the attack. Both flee desperately, the man shouting that even his magic sword is useless against it. Exhausted, they collapse in a forest clearing, the man wondering aloud where the worm's weakness might be and who this mysterious PJ is. They decide to search the notebook for any clues on defense. The man then notices a page depicting a weapon distinctly different from his own, sparking hope that he might have found a solution. The man carefully draws a magic circle exactly as it appears in the notebook, preparing to channel magic power through it. Suddenly, a powerful slash cuts through the air, astonishing both him and the woman. The slash seems to cut through space itself, slicing a rock clean in two. He stares in disbelief, questioning the magic circle's power. Examining the weapons and armor, he notes that all of PJ's weapons have magic circles seamlessly integrated into their decoration, making them hard to notice. He wonders who PJ was, acknowledging his skill as a craftsman but questioning why such a person would die alone in the demon land. The woman teasingly calls him an idiot, but he admits he has no clue. The next morning, the man declares his intent to seek revenge on the desert using PJ's sword, but first suggests they head to the river to fetch water. The woman calls out to Makio, who appears quietly behind him. Nearby, a female cleric stands by the river, her presence catching attention as leaves drift around her. The man recognizes the female cleric from before and asks if she needs something. She introduces herself as Jennifer Volkov, explaining she has left the White Lightning and requests to be taken in here. The man firmly refuses the cleric's request to take her in. She insists, explaining her skills as a former cleric who can treat injuries and illnesses and manage party consumables. She pleads, saying she's from the north and can handle the cold. He declines, wondering why she traveled to such a remote place. He questions if she was fired from her party rather than leaving voluntarily. Flustered, she denies it, but he insists this is his land and he can't let her live there without knowing the full circumstances. She falls silent, clearly troubled. Tearfully, she admits her companions said she was no longer needed and asks to be allowed to stay. She reveals she is an orphan with no home to return to. The man suggests she should go back to a safer place, not remain in the demon land. She vehemently rejects this, declaring this land is the place she's been searching for. An ideal, wonderful land where she won't be betrayed. The man shouts that he's still here and this is his land, demanding if she even listened to him. She quietly asks if he could at least guide her to a house. He warns her that staying here means paying rent and not to fuss over everything in the demon land. She confidently replies she's prepared some money. As they walk, she's suddenly attacked by a slime monster, causing him to sigh in exasperation. The woman cheerfully reminds him to watch out for monsters. Inside a small house, he contemplates that it would be troublesome if she died and turned into a monster, deciding to let her stay briefly before sending her off. Suddenly, she panics, shouting about a demon nearby. The man reminds her she promised not to fuss over what she sees here. Makio appears calmly, addressing her by name. He announces he'll go water the fields. While she nervously protests, he tells her to treat Makio with respect despite her foolishness. The woman anxiously asks if Makio is an enemy and worries she'll be taken to the guards if found. The man calmly listens as she frets about the danger. He questions if persecuting innocent people is truly the church's teaching. Recalling that the enemy was over 100 years ago, the woman is stunned by his words. He explains Cher teaches him magic as payment for rent and demonstrates a powerful water magic spell, revealing he's become quite skilled. He warns Jennifer that if she can't pay the rent, she'll have to leave. She confidently offers 10 gold coins for a month's stay, surprising him. When he questions the coins, she hands over a check instead. He doubts its value, but she insists it's worth 10 gold coins. He sighs, saying this won't do, and explains that while such checks are normal in the capital, this isn't the capital. She can exchange it for gold coins at a money changer, but none come here. He suggests she might have to work dishwashing or collecting firewood. She angrily agrees to work. She vows to do anything and become the best in this hellish place, seeking revenge on those who wronged her. He notes her sudden anger and calls her dangerous. He doubts the demon land is the right place for her and orders her to get out. She asks if he said something rude, confused and upset. He explains he understands why she was expelled from her party, pointing out she doesn't listen to others and things rarely go her way here. She clenches her teeth, clearly frustrated, and walks away as he reiterates the demon land isn't that easy. When asked if he's leaving, the man confirms with a simple yes. The woman looks downcast, burdened by the harsh truth that there's no place for someone like her here. He explains she came for revenge and would be better off in the capital. The next day dawns over the vast wilderness. The woman energetically reminds him not to forget P.J.'s sword as they prepare to continue exploring the desert. He reveals he's caught an essential creature for their return, knowing they'll likely lose their bearings in the desert. A bird with a strong homing instinct, called a leaf bird, sleeps quickly in dark places. He encourages her to release it. The man stretches and prepares to move out, calling the woman by name. She looks curious and asks what he wants. Nearby, the leaf bird rests quietly in a shaded spot, ready to guide them back. The woman lies injured, unconscious but breathing, with blood staining her clothes. The man worries over her broken leg and contemplates whether to let her stay another night. Despite the hardship, he feels relieved she's alive. The man confirms he has healed her wounds with recovery magic, so she should be fine for now. The woman lies unconscious but stable. He insists on not delaying the desert exploration any longer. She agrees confidently to head to the desert as planned. Outside, the vast desert stretches endlessly. They set off, expecting she'll probably leave on her own once she wakes. Under the bright sun, they prepare for the journey. The woman points ahead, naming a distant spot Makio. Suddenly, a giant monstrous eye emerges from the sand. The man steels himself, determined to handle the threat so he can explore in peace. He focuses on using P.J.'s sword. The man leaps into action, striking the massive creature with swift, powerful blows. The monster reels from the attack, water or slime spraying from its body. The battle intensifies as he fights to subdue the giant foe. The man lands a decisive blow, instantly killing the creature. The woman marvels at the sword's power, impressed despite its reputation for weakness. The man reads from his notebook, noting that desert monsters are generally weak but the information isn't very reliable. He points out the note's warning about poisonous plants, but observes there aren't any plants in the desert around them. They set off across the endless desert, the man declaring they should explore. They pause by a strange, large rock formation. Suddenly, a massive chained island floats in the sky. Catching their attention, the man asks, stunned, what it could be, and the woman wonders if it's a bird. The man realizes it's an island suspended in the sky by chains. He wonders if this is the ruins mentioned in PJ's notebook and urges the woman to move forward. They approach the enormous chain links anchored in the desert sand, awestruck by their size. The man touches the giant chain, marveling at its size and uncertain of its material. He suggests aiming for the floating island and climbing up. Both begin the exhausting climb, panting heavily. His expression shifts to concern as he senses the difficulty ahead. The man reflects on the challenge, recalling his training in the demon land but admitting this is much harder. He explains that Cher tried using magic to ease the climb but was repelled by the chain. Coating himself in magic allows him to stick to the chain, but the chain absorbs his magic, quickly draining him and leaving him vulnerable. Despite many mysteries, he resolves to keep climbing, questioning who created such a structure. The two continue their arduous climb up the massive chain links, the endless desert stretching behind them. The chain coils and twists, its enormous links dwarfing the climbers as they press onward toward the floating island above. Sweat drips down their faces as exhaustion sets in. Both push themselves, gasping for breath, urging each other forward with strained determination. The summit of the chain nears, and a hand grips the edge with desperate strength. They finally reach the top, collapsing onto the ground, utterly spent. The man lies back, catching his breath, while the woman struggles to stand, urging herself to take more steps. As they look ahead, a sprawling town comes into view, its ancient structures entwined with giant tree roots. The man surveys the ruins, noting signs of a once thriving culture, houses, furniture, and other traces of daily life. Yet, the place is eerily silent, with no human bones or signs of conflict. He concludes quietly that the entire island is uninhabited, a ghostly remnant of a forgotten civilization. The man wonders if the people they saw just vanished suddenly. Walking among ancient gravestones, he spots a tall, weathered grave marker and questions if it is a grave. The woman beside him looks on quietly as he approaches the stone. The inscription reveals the name Peter Jefferson rests here. Shocking him deeply, he gasps, recognizing the name P.J. from his notebook and struggles to grasp the meaning of this discovery. The woman watches silently as he processes the revelation. A spectral skeleton in a robe appears, pondering who the skeleton in the cave was. The man admits he doesn't know, while the woman crosses her arms, equally puzzled. As the sun sets behind the floating island chained to the sky, they decide to camp for the night. The mystery surrounding the ruins only deepens beneath the rising moon. Night falls over the ruins, the cold biting at their skin due to the high altitude. The man shivers, asking the woman Cher if he can huddle with her for warmth. She happily embraces him, smiling warmly. Despite the chill, he refuses to stop exploring, his resolve firm under the moonlit sky. A bird circles in the sky, drawing their attention. The man points out a direction across the barren landscape. With no further discoveries on the floating island, they decide to return to the cave below. Both are exhausted and covered in sand as they reach the cave entrance. The woman admits her fatigue while the man contemplates heating water with magic for a bath. She eagerly eats something, while he exhales deeply, gathering strength. Suddenly, his expression sharpens with surprise. The man rushes forward, startled to find a wounded woman collapsed inside the cave. He calls out to her, alarmed by the terrible wound she bears. She struggles to catch her breath, clearly in pain. The man questions why she is still here, but she responds with a weary indifference. She explains how monsters and plants attacked her in the forest, causing her to lose her way. He notes her dejected state as she reveals she can't get out, baptized by the demon land's harshness. He asks why she, a cleric, can't use healing magic, but she admits she exhausted her magic power. He shrugs off concern, deciding to sleep, ordering her to keep the fire going and do some work. She nervously questions if he means her, while he accuses her of eating their food without permission. The next morning, he stretches awake outside. Inside, she sits quietly by the fire. He notes she managed to keep the fire burning all night without sleeping. She confesses she's been powerless since arriving in the demon land and can't return home. He silently summons a staff, offering it to her. He explains it can paralyze monsters, helping her reach the stream at the entrance. She looks at the staff with a mix of hope and anxiety. She kneels, pleading to stay longer and promises to pay for lodging. He is taken aback by her determination. She admits her weaknesses and shortcomings, but insists leaving without trying will change nothing. He asks if she wants to change and wonders what happened to her plan for revenge against those who banished her. She remains silent, then reveals she was abandoned by her parents and became a cleric. The sister at the church told her to live freely, but she was kicked out with those words. Following that advice, she became an adventurer, but she was also banished from there. She admits that revenge was just an excuse she made up. The harsh truth is no one needs her, and she refuses to acknowledge her own weakness. He listens quietly, absorbing her confession. He asks if she has a purpose in the demon land. She replies that she finds it amazing how she can live freely in such a harsh realm without needing to be needed by anyone. He reacts with surprise to her words. She urgently begs him to teach her about adventuring. He protests, saying he's not on an adventure and that he only goes to the desert to learn about his land. She pleads again, but he tells her if she wants to do it, she should do it alone. Jennifer declares she'll bake bread on her own, then urgently asks Cher to teach her. Cher reacts with surprise. The man sighs, telling the two women to get along. Jennifer asks if she can use the empty space as her bed. Cher agrees, saying Jennifer can stay for a while and do as she likes. The man notices they have another housemate and wonders where things went wrong. Jennifer offers an advance payment, holding out a coin. Cher explains it's what she got from the only opponent she defeated in the demon land, a female zombie. The man examines the coin, noting it's an old gold coin he's never seen before. The narration reveals Jennifer ended up staying with them, leaving the man unsettled. He carves wood, explaining he's making a staff to trade at the training facility. Jennifer asks what he's making, and he admits it's poorly made. More like a freebie. Cher watches quietly. Jennifer excitedly insists the staff is a paralysis staff and a very excellent weapon as a debuffer. Though the man protests, Cher confirms the staff isn't cheap. Jennifer beams, asking if he thinks so. The man smiles awkwardly. Jennifer waves goodbye, telling them to take care as they watch her leave. Cher asks about the woman, and P.J. replies she's not leaving. When pressed why, he explains she wants adventures and chose to stay on her own. Just like Cher, he reflects silently, realizing she pushed her way in. The scene shifts to a guarded wooden gate. Inside, a man tells P.J. the staff he brought sold for a high price and there were requests for more. He asks if P.J. was looking for a magic book, explaining it's not about time or space. P.J. shows a beginner's textbook he found, flipping through its pages. P.J. studies the book, noting it only has basic magic effects and circles but is still useful for understanding the system. He decides to trade the book and recalls that day when he also acquired tools for shipbuilding and women's clothing. He sits eating while reading. P.J. examines the magic circles drawn on his weapons, noting most are unidentifiable, but he roughly categorizes them into fire, water, earth, and wind systems. He plans to copy the circles onto paper for future reference. Cher quietly asks if he keeps reading books and if he's going to defeat monsters. He tells her to go ahead if she wants to defeat the monsters, reminding her they are each on different adventures. She quietly agrees, then cautiously walks through a dim tunnel, her expression thoughtful and determined. She thanks him for getting clothes for her. Smiling warmly, he remains silent, sitting alone and reflecting that the clothes were on the way. Outside, a figure steps forward through the forest, their boots crunching on the rocky ground. The figure wears a hooded cloak and carries a large hammer, ready to face whatever lies ahead. Cher calls out to Makio with a bright smile. Though her clothes are stained with blood, P.J. reacts with concern, noticing she's covered in blood and asks what happened. She explains the blood isn't hers but from a haze turtle. Cher then shows him a strange circular object and asks if he knows what it could be. P.J. examines the object closely, noting it doesn't look like a normal stone and has lightning patterns on it. He confirms it's definitely man-made, but nothing happens when he tries to infuse it with magic. Cher reveals she found it in the swamp, where similar lightning patterns appear on ruins depicted in an ancient book. P.J. explains there might be ruins buried within the swamp and suggests they investigate. Cher agrees as they look toward the swamp, the sunlight filtering through the trees. Jennifer lies exhausted on the ground, panting, while Cher explains she was trying to teach Jennifer how to swim. P.J. prepares himself, flexing his arm as he announces he has enchanted it with light magic. He then dives into the water with determination, surrounded by fish, ready to explore the swamp's depths. Various strange fish swim calmly underwater before a massive, terrifying creature with a huge open mouth lunges forward. The man dives straight into its jaws, his glowing hand poised to strike. His knuckles crack with determination as he mutters a curse. The man punches the creature, causing it to bleed as he swims fiercely. He acknowledges the fight will be difficult and decides to use magic to create a current, planning to dive straight down to escape or reposition. He propels himself downward, but the stirred-up mud clouds his vision, blocking his view. Frustrated, he realizes the current is making it harder to see the bottom. He resolves to think of another plan. Suspecting ruins lie buried beneath the mud, and intends to keep creating currents to clear the area. Surfacing gasping for air, the man removes his wet clothes while two women ask if he found anything. He explains the water's surface was murky and that he tried digging because there might be ruins below. His sharp gaze shifts as he prepares to dive in again once the water clears, his boots firmly stepping on the shore. A hooded figure carrying a large hammer steps into the water, drawing the attention of two onlookers who call out, "Hey, Makio!" The man greets her and asks if she has any business on the land. She apologizes for interrupting and explains she heard there were people here and came to see. The man reacts with surprise. Suddenly, a slime creature lunges at the hooded woman, causing her to stumble and struggle in the water. The onlookers worry she might drown and debate whether to help. The man advises waiting until she actually starts drowning, then decisively moves to assist, grabbing her arm. The man pulls the woman from the water, revealing her soaked and exhausted form. He coughs in shock, realizing she is a woman. His expression hardens as he processes the situation. The woman apologizes repeatedly while catching her breath. The man sternly tells her that if she dares to come to this land, she must be stronger, warning that anyone easily defeated by slimes is hopeless. She explains she came because she heard the wands made on the island are of high quality and pleads with him to sell her one. The man calmly replies that for now, the wands are only sold at military training facilities, and she listens with a mix of hope and desperation. The man says he doesn't mind selling wands but asks if she has anything valuable to trade. Adding he doesn't need money, the woman nervously offers her backpack for inspection. He finds a history book and wonders whose story it tells, realizing it should be about the place's history. The man reads aloud that the book talks about floating islands and monsters taller than mountains, calling the author's imagination wild. He then offers to trade one wand for 10 history books like this. The woman reacts with surprise and agrees to the trade, while he promises to prepare 10 wands for her next visit. The woman protests the deal is too disadvantageous and worries she might not return soon. The man acknowledges her concerns thoughtfully. He asks if she can keep the trade a secret, warning that if she can't, the deal is off. She nervously agrees. He then places a cloak on the woman. The woman exclaims in shock at the mention of a demon tribe, while the man sternly warns her not to speak of what she sees on this land. A quiet moment follows as the woman processes this. The man instructs Jennifer to check for tradable items outside and tells Cher to choose magic stones and make wands for them. A woman urgently reports that bandits west of here have revolted, and powerful weapons are needed to suppress them. The man asks why she needs the wands. Guessing she is a merchant, flustered, she admits it. The man whispers to a woman named Makio, noting the high quality of the items she carries. Suspecting she might be a thief who could only acquire such goods by attacking a noble's carriage. He wonders if a high-ranking adventurer turned thief, but decides he will trade with her regardless. The woman vehemently denies being a thief, her expression tense and defensive. The man presses her, demanding to know where she got the items. She struggles to respond, clearly distressed. She reveals she is a noble from East Kenya, explaining that her uncle, the Lord, ordered her to purchase weapons. So she came here. The man reflects on how most people mistakenly think this land belongs to East Kenya, but it does not. He questions the noblewoman about the rebellion in East Kenya and why she came to buy weapons, urgently telling her she should flee. She insists citizens of East Kenya have no option to flee. He explains East Kenya's proximity to the land of elves makes its people brave but reckless. Calling them savages, she protests, claiming to be the best female warrior there. He suggests her uncle sent her away under the guise of buying weapons to protect her. Relieved the weapons aren't stolen, he feels at ease. He warns her not to mention their conversation. They resume investigating a swamp, discovering giant creature bones. Despite their search, nothing significant is found within the ruins. Asked if she will return to the swamp, the man says he will read instead. He opens a history book, summarizing that the land used to be a country where people suddenly disappeared in large numbers without warning. The book describes floating islands devoured by a gigantic beast and a religion where deer were messengers of God. It mentions the cave might have been a shelter, and the territory suffers constant natural disasters. He notes East Kenya is fertile but frequently plagued by rebellions and wars, and he is most concerned about the woman's homeland. The history book depicts heroes who reclaimed their territory, noting that adventurers sparked an internal conflict. The man contemplates the situation silently, realizing it will be troublesome. Outside, dark clouds gather ominously over the land, signaling that another storm is approaching. The man firmly states they haven't been mobilized despite the rebellion nearby. The young man explains a female warrior from the nobility warned of a rebellion in a neighboring territory. The older man acknowledges the adventurers' rebellion but notes their remote location. He believes the rebellion has likely been suppressed and reassures them it's not a concern. The young man, feeling less worried, dashes forward with the girl following. She suddenly alerts him that it's raining. He pauses thoughtfully as the rain intensifies, pouring down heavily over the landscape. The rain worsens, forcing them to seek shelter near a cave. A woman calls out to the young man, urging him to help place sandbags at the cave entrance. He agrees, noting the cave is safe for now, but the woman warns that continued rain will ruin the fields. The young man resolves to investigate the rising water levels, promising to use magic to divert the floodwaters into the ground. The rain pounds the fields relentlessly as he prepares to act, determined to prevent a flood. Heavy rain pours down as the young man crouches near a cliff, observing the flooded surroundings. From above, he watches the relentless downpour soak the land. Inside a shelter, a woman asks how the situation is. He admits it's no good. Though the fields are protected, the surrounding area is flooded, making it difficult to expand the farmland. The two women listen intently, concern growing on their faces. The rain continues to pour heavily the next day, intensifying into what the woman calls a hurricane. The young man contemplates their predicament, noting they must rely on trade for vegetables and wheat since they can't go outside. He considers crafting homemade traps using PJ's magic circle to defend themselves. The young man begins carving an explosion trap magic circle onto a wooden board, explaining he'll leave one line incomplete to delay the explosion. He imagines the trap blowing off at least a leg of a large monster if set under dead leaves. Suddenly, a loud explosion startles him, and the two women call for Makio to come outside. Outside, the trio stares in shock as a mountain appears, rumbling ominously in the rain. The woman gasps Makio's name, and the young man realizes the mountain is moving, their expressions filled with fear and disbelief. A colossal, ancient creature resembling a mountain looms, its massive form drenched in rain and thunder. Its immense legs stand firm on the ground as lightning crackles overhead, emphasizing its overwhelming presence. The giant beast spins powerfully, whipping the air with its body, creating fierce winds that uproot trees and shake the earth violently. The storm intensifies, with thunder roaring and lightning striking around the creature. The young man realizes the mountain itself is the source of the thunderstorm and violent winds swirling around it. He recalls this as the giant magical beast noted in PJ's notebook, a rare entity that appears only once every 3 months. Nearby, enormous turtles and flying dragons flee the chaos it causes. The young man shouts in disbelief at the chaos unleashed by the beast, questioning where such a huge creature has been hiding until now. As the storm rages, monstrous creatures clash violently nearby, while the young man and a woman watch the towering beast with a mix of fear and awe. Monsters are being lifted by the tornado and instantly killed by lightning. Part of the cave has collapsed, and monsters are fleeing north. The young man realizes staying inside risks being buried alive. He decides to flee north as well. The mountain beast spins violently, whipping fierce winds around it. The young man orders Chell to cast magic on her legs and tells Jennifer to tie herself with a rope to avoid falling. They prepare to escape with all their might. The young man carries Jennifer on his back as they dash through the storm, dodging flying debris and shattered trees. Chell runs close behind, determined to keep pace despite the chaos. They leap over obstacles, racing through the rain and wind. The young man urges them to keep heading north, pushing forward through the relentless storm and the destruction left in the beast's wake. Lightning streaks across a dark, stormy sky as the group reaches a barren wasteland marked by jagged rocks and swirling debris. The young man quietly acknowledges their arrival, breath heavy with exhaustion, while the two women beside him for air, their faces tense and drenched in rain. Monstrous creatures writhe and collapse in the distance, smoke rising from their fallen forms as the ground trembles beneath the storm's fury. The young man grimly compares the scene to the end of the world, urging the group to retreat back to the forest. They struggle through the rain, knowing they must find shelter quickly. Suddenly, the ground beneath them cracks and splinters, forcing the young man to shout in alarm as he stumbles forward with the woman clinging tightly to his back. The third member of their group grips her staff, eyes wide with fear as debris falls around them. The young man looks up in confusion, sensing something unexpected. Inside a dimly lit stone chamber, the young man cradles his aching head while the woman on his back winces in pain. He scans the walls and then gazes upward, spotting a narrow beam of light piercing through an opening above. He wonders if this place is an ancient well or the remnants of a civilization that once inhabited the demonic realm, his expression tightening with determination. The young man realizes his leg is broken, panic flashing in his eyes as he looks down at his injured foot. The woman on his back gently offers to untie the rope binding them. She stands, scanning their surroundings, relieved they can finally shelter from the relentless wind and rain. He calls out for Makio, then breathes a shaky sigh, grateful to still be alive. The girl with short light hair leaps down with a determined smile, clutching firewood as she calls out a magic chant. Thunder! Thunder! She strikes the wood together, igniting a fire. The group gathers around the small blaze, the warmth a brief comfort amid the damp stone chamber. The young man listens intently, noting the faint sound of footsteps even here in the wasteland. He warns they are not yet safe. His expression tense, the woman kneels, apologizing for being a burden and fearing she might have died. He exhales deeply, steeling himself as he calls out for Makio. A beam of light pierces the darkness, droplets falling silently. The woman pokes the young man's head, urging him to wake up. He jolts awake, eyes wide with shock, as the woman shouts his name, desperate to rouse him from unconsciousness. He wakes, startled, wondering how long he has been asleep, feeling his foot. He realizes it is healed. The girl explains she used healing magic. She suddenly calls out, urging him to follow her quickly. He asks what's wrong as she runs ahead, leading him through a dark tunnel. They walk deeper inside, and he wonders if this passageway is connected to an underground water vein. They reach a cavern glowing with countless luminous mushrooms. She marvels at their beauty, but he warns her not to touch them carelessly, his gaze sharp and alert. They discover an underground lake, too dark to see clearly. The girl urgently shows him a small, ornate ring, calling it a thunderstone. He asks where she found it, and she reveals a skeleton was clutching it tightly. They find a robed skeleton seated in the cave, surrounded by melted candles. He is shocked, calling it a mummy. The girl suggests searching for more clues. He picks up an old, elaborately decorated book, noting it looks like a beginner's adventurer's guidebook, its design quite ancient. The book reveals a detailed drawing of the stone, labeled as a dungeon key with a warning not to lose it. The girl asks if it's really a key to a dungeon. While the boy admits he's never been in one, the girl explains she has been in a dungeon before, recalling her party's venture into the deepest part of the capital city. They notice a note on the last page stating, "If the dungeon is stolen by a magical beast, then it's over." The trio exchanges puzzled looks, questioning if a dungeon can even be stolen. The boy wonders aloud, while the girl with the ponytail remains silent, deep in thought. Suddenly, the girl with short hair exclaims that it's impossible for a dungeon to be stolen. They decide to leave the cavern, noting the giant magical beast's presence seems to have vanished. The young man climbs out of a well entwined with thick roots, landing firmly on the ground. He notes the weather has cleared and senses the giant magical beast has left the area. The girl and another companion emerge behind him. Relieved, he slides down a rope, preparing to move forward. The group surveys the forest, now scarred and damaged by the beast's rampage. The young man wonders if the terrain itself has changed. Strange creatures, including a flying insect and a reptilian monster, inhabit the devastated woods. He suggests they head back home. The young man suddenly realizes he hasn't eaten since the previous day. The two girls express their hunger as well. Despite the corpses of magical creatures scattered around, he feels reluctant to eat them. He advises eating camu seeds to endure the hunger for now, causing the girls to react with disappointment. Inside a ruined room filled with stones and rubble, the young man laments the mess and his sudden fatigue. The girl rushes in, noting they can't use the hearth properly. The young man resolves to clean up and make the place habitable before resting. Exhausted, the young man collapses onto the ground. Relieved they've cleared enough space for 3 adults to sleep, one girl immediately falls asleep, snoring loudly, while another quietly admits she's also at her limit. Wrapped in a blanket, he sighs, feeling drowsy and frustrated that he can't take a bath. Suddenly, he senses something moving in his pocket and notices a rhythmic beating. Examining the gold coin from Jennifer, he realizes it pulses like a heartbeat. Remembering a mummy once had it, he accidentally flicks the coin, sending it rolling away. He scrambles after the precious coin, but it bounces and rolls uncontrollably through the forest. Frustrated, he shouts at himself and races after it. Spotting the coin heading toward a swamp, alarmed, he realizes that's the way to a dangerous swamp. Frustration boils over as he flicks the coin, yelling in anger. The coin spins wildly across the ground before plopping into the water. He watches helplessly as it sinks, while a small figure splashes nearby lamenting the waste. Suddenly, the coin is found again, sparking hope. His eyes widen in shock as a pair of bare feet rise from the water's surface. A glowing, ethereal elf ghost emerges, illuminated by the full moon and surrounded by floating lights. She floats gracefully above the water, her expression calm and mysterious. His shock deepens as he stares in disbelief. The ghost's gaze shifts, and she silently acknowledges something nearby. She steps lightly on the water, her form shimmering as she moves away. He watches, overwhelmed and speechless, unable to look away. The next day, he explains to Jennifer and Chell about the translucent elf ghost he saw. Chell laughs nervously, calling it scary. While Jennifer questions if Makio provoked it, he denies any wrongdoing. But the eerie memory lingers as they discuss the ghost's intangible nature. Jennifer kneels calmly, explaining that even if the ghost resents him, splashing holy water on it will calm it down. He gasps in surprise, realizing Jennifer can make holy water. She confirms this, revealing she is a priestess. She then performs a ritual, chanting as she holds a jar with a sprig inside, causing the water to glow with a holy aura. The holy water is complete, sparkling with purity. Jennifer announces it's done, and he admires her refined chanting and gestures. Like a true priestess, he cheerfully suggests putting the gold coin into the holy water for purification, while Chell and Jennifer watch. A flashback shows the group working hard to restore the cave, with Chell washing dishes, Jennifer cleaning, and him carrying heavy loads. Despite their efforts, most of the food was destroyed. Jennifer calls out to Makio as he stands silhouetted in the cave's entrance, contemplating the damage. He notices PJ's armor, perfectly intact without a single scratch. Jennifer explains it might be made of adamantite, an incredibly hard metal. She adds that the armor's performance is so exceptional that comrades sometimes fight over it, highlighting its value and rarity. He reflects that PJ seems like a lone wolf with no companions. Chell calls out his name, but suddenly the floor beneath them collapses with a loud crash. He realizes the floor collapsed due to an attack from a giant magical beast. Though the base isn't perfectly shaped, it looks like the trap is about to activate. Worried, he urges everyone to avoid using this room for now as it's too dangerous. Night falls. Alone, he watches the gold coin inside the holy water bottle move again. Frustrated that Jennifer's holy water isn't working, he wonders if this means the elf spirit is being called again, feeling troubled by having to perform this ritual every night. Determined, he declares he has no choice but to stop it. He rolls the coin inside the bottle while venturing deeper into the swamp than before, pondering if he can return safely. His foot sinks into the thick foliage with a grunt of effort. A voice emerges from beneath the dried leaves, startling him. He stomps down again, determined to confirm it. His eyes widen as he realizes there really is someone hidden there. He discovers the elf from yesterday lying unconscious among the leaves. Confused, he wonders if she might be a ghost or even a zombie. She suddenly gasps for help, insisting she is alive. He offers her water, noting the gold coin in the bottle has stopped moving. She drinks carefully while he watches, surprised by her height. She steadies herself and apologizes as she stands. He questions where she came from, and she reveals she crossed the snowy mountains from the country of elves. When asked her name, she introduces herself as Helgen Talone, but asks him to call her Heli. He introduces himself as Makio, the landlord of the magical realm, and notices she looks exhausted. Inviting her to his house for now, she admits being swallowed by the ground and unable to move. She searched for others with her spirit, but is grateful he found her. He realizes she has a physical form and is no longer afraid. He asks if she can stand. He supports her as she leans on his shoulder. He asks if she injured her shoulder, spotting a fresh, bloody cut. He examines it closely, recognizing it as a knife mark, and his expression shifts to shock as he calls her Helgen. He reveals the mark is a slave magic circle and asks if she is an escaped slave. She denies ever being anyone's slave and explains she fled, because she was about to be convicted of a crime that would have made her a slave. She insists she hasn't committed any crimes and tried to stop a foolish war from starting. He questions if that counts as treason and if she is a criminal slave. She firmly denies it, declaring she fled from her country and does not intend to cause trouble. She kneels, pleading to be allowed to stay for a while. He looks on, conflicted and silent. A voice asks if she can pay the rent. Two women exchange glances inside a cave. While a dark mountain looms outside, the elf steps forward confidently, introducing herself as Helgen and extending a firm greeting. The narrator notes she seems bossy. The group reacts with surprise and suspicion, calling her an outcast and even a demon. One wonders why troublemakers always gather in the demon world. The man exhales quietly, questioning if he has gained another roommate. The scene shifts to a moonlit wilderness as he reflects that he never imagined this elf would bring so much trouble, nor considered it at the time. A plain meal lies before them, but the man notices they are out of wheat. Concerned, he wonders if the giant monster washed away all their supplies. The woman suggests they might have to go to the training ground to trade. The elf listens quietly as they consider their next move. The man asks what they should bring since almost all their food and weapons are ruined. The woman suggests wands as the easiest to make, along with monster furs and potion ingredients. The girl adds elf potions to the list. The man questions if the elf has studied pharmacology, while the elf looks surprised, holding a piece of food. The elf laughs and assures them it's no big deal, promising to make healing potions as compensation for the rent. She enthusiastically directs them to gather ingredients for potions right away. The man warns her to be careful as she heads out. The elf suddenly screams in pain, startling the others. The man kicks her away, calling her troublesome. He checks if she is still alive, holding up a scorpion that had stung her. The elf is left speechless, sweating and clearly in discomfort. The man orders Cher to gather magic stones for the wands, and she responds with a determined, "Aye." The forest answers with a quiet, "All right." The woman instructs Jennifer to collect edible plants and useful materials near the cave, who acknowledges with a firm "Roger that." The man then commands Helgon to make potions from the gathered materials, and she responds with a shameful but resolute, "I understand." The group rallies with a spirited call to action. "Well then, let's start working." The man reflects on how the giant monster's presence has reduced their encounters with other monsters, suggesting they focus on collecting more common magic stones rather than rare ones. The forest stands silent as night falls. A collection of gathered materials lies ready, hinting at their hard work. Jennifer marvels at the large haul, especially the arachne silk, noting its value for trading. The man and Cher agree they've had a good haul. Helgon holds up finished healing potions, requesting the medicinal herbs be left to determine their quality. The man reminds everyone that they can stay as long as they pay rent but warns that failure to pay will result in immediate eviction. Sunlight filters through the trees, underscoring the seriousness of their situation. The man announces their departure to the training facility, instructing the others to take care of things while they're gone. The group exchanges farewells, wishing each other a safe trip. The man contemplates the need to request more goods this time, including flour, vegetables, and construction tools. As the population grows, the scene closes on the fortified settlement, signaling the next phase of their journey. A sharp feeling of unease strikes as distant shouts echo near sharp wooden spikes. The man notices the commotion and senses something is wrong. He watches a fierce combat training session unfold, where a nimble woman skillfully dodges blows from armored men, drawing cheers from the crowd. He wonders if the opponent is a child or a woman. The man is approached by a stern captain who asks if he's back again. The man greets him and inquires about the commotion. The captain explains they are calming down the slaves. The captain asks if the man is here to discuss the war. The man explains a disaster in the demon land washed away their food and offers to trade. The captain agrees, saying it's fine with him. Inside a wooden building, the captain admires the rare arachne silk brought for trade. He agrees to exchange it for food and tools like saws, hammers, and needles. Then his expression turns serious as he says there is something important to hear about the demon land. The man listens intently. The captain asks if the man remembers the civil war in East Kenya. The man confirms, and the captain explains that the territory governed by the noble is East Kenya, where elves intervened in a civil war between nobles and adventurers. A map shows the current location near Demonland and East Kenya, highlighting the political tension in the region. The man reacts with shock, asking if elves invaded East Kenya. The captain explains the elves' claim to reclaim their ancestral land, but it's a different era now. He recalls Heli's wish to stop the war in the elven country. The man reflects as the captain adds that the people living there have changed. A map shows the elves were driven back quickly, but the situation remains tense. The captain reveals that adventurers gained more military merit than nobles in the fight against the elves, causing many nobles to lose status. The man questions if adventurers now rule the land. The captain says the nobles who instigated the adventurers still rule the territory, though he's not entirely sure. The captain warns that certain nobles began claiming the demon land as their territory. Likely aware of the man's wand power and wanting to keep it, he produces a document, stating he has purchased territory in the demon land and presents the paper. The man is startled as the captain explains the document is from a real estate agent and lacks strong legal effect. Without the Estonian royal family signature, the man might lose in court. The captain advises that the demon land has long been a gray area, beneficial for neighboring countries, but insists it's better if the man's land remains his. The man confirms he is on their side, explaining they are the royal army and that East Kenya belongs to the Estonian kingdom. He warns that if East Kenya rebels, they can intervene. He cautions that someone is targeting the demon land, while the young man reflects that the army has its own problems. The young man asks if it's okay to simply chase away intruders. The man agrees, acknowledging the situation could get complicated. He promises to contact the central office to send official documents proving the land belongs to the young man. Outside, soldiers restrain a struggling figure as the group prepares to leave. The man addresses Makio, asking him to take a slave woman to the demon land as a thank you gift for their trade. He says she was sent by the new lord of East Kenya and that Makio can treat her however he likes. The woman, sweating and exhausted, is carried by two soldiers. The young man worries that having a woman in the facility will cause problems. The man explains that since the current lord sent her, she must be a former noble but is now just a slave. He says as long as she stays in the demon land, it should be fine. The young man contemplates the situation while the woman looks shocked and uneasy. The young man recognizes the desperate figure as Makio, noting her changed hairstyle and accusing her of being the one who came to buy wands. Makio stammers in response. A woman in a cloak calls out Makio's name, explaining the demon territory is in ruins and they need all the help they can get. The young man realizes the person in disguise must be Makio. The young man swiftly grabs Makio, who tries to protest, and declares they'll take her with them. As they leave, a soldier waves goodbye. Back at the cave, two women greet them with a warm welcome. The young man explains he brought back a slave. One of the women asks who she is, prompting a tense silence. Their eyes meet, and the woman's expression shifts to surprise as she processes the situation. The slave suddenly lashes out, shouting angrily at the elves and blaming them. She attacks fiercely, grabbing one of the elves by the collar, demanding to know what she is. The young man watches with a serious expression as the confrontation escalates. The young man forcefully pushes the angry slave woman away, urging them all to get along as fellow slaves while resting his hand on the elf's head. The elf looks distressed, and the slave woman glares fiercely. The young man plugs his ears, overwhelmed by the noise, shouting that he's not a slave. He sternly declares that they will live here with them, warning that failure to pay rent or fighting will get them kicked out. The slave woman and elf glare at each other, tension simmering. The young man tells Cher to help build a house, and she agrees. The next day dawns quietly as the young man yawns and greets the others. The young man asks Jennifer to make the vegetable seasoning spicier, and she nervously agrees. The elf and slave woman exchange determined looks, and the young man notes they seem to be getting along. He announces the plan for today's hunt. Gathering food and materials, the forest stands calm and quiet. Cheers erupt as the group raises their fists in determination. The young man observes that Sylvia appears capable of fighting well on her own. Meanwhile, Sylvia confronts a large, menacing orc wielding a massive weapon, ready to strike, while the others watch from behind. A giant turtle lifts a small girl in its mouth, and she screams that she's going to be eaten. The turtle bites the elf woman's cloak, startling her. The girl named Cher is called by the young man, who watches the turtle crackle with magical energy. Cher grips her sword tightly and dashes forward as the turtle's shell crackles ominously. The young man leaps and slashes at the turtle's neck, cutting into its skin. Blood splashes as the turtle recoils, slamming Cher to the ground. A woman nearby holding a hammer watches in shock. The elf woman winces in pain from the impact. The young man, now covered in blood, apologizes as he tells Cher to take Sylvia to the river to wash up and find new clothes for her. The elf woman, also bloodied, says she will wash up as well. The scene shifts to a peaceful river, contrasting the earlier battle. The young man enjoys a bite of food, declaring it delicious, while a pot simmers over a fire, preparing Hayes turtle soup. Cher calls the young man over urgently, and he follows her through the forest. Nearby, a horse lies on the ground, exhausted or injured, with Cher and the young man approaching it. The young man discovers a thigh-horse carcass by the river, noting it still has a saddle. The girl named Makio points out two more thigh-horse carcasses nearby. He spots a bag, weapons, and bloodstains. Wondering if an intruder passed through, he finds a letter inside the bag and calls out to Makio. Suddenly, a giant Vespa hornet nest drops from above, buzzing fiercely. The young man realizes whoever rode the horse was attacked by hornets and turned into meatballs. The elf woman asks what he plans to do, but he admits the horses can't be saved. She suggests they return to eat. The elf woman, covered in tattoos, quietly says she understands the situation. The young man notices her tattoos and addresses her as Helly, commenting on the markings. She looks away, contemplative, as he speaks to her. Helly reveals she is cursed, explaining the tattoos seal the curse within her, which severely limits her magic use. She can barely use magic at all. The young man asks if the curse causes problems in her daily life, but she says it's fine. He assures her that as the landlord, he has no problem with who she is. As long as she continues making valuable potions, the woman with the hammer reacts with surprise at this acceptance. The elf woman asks if he fears her curse, but the young man denies it. He admits he is also cursed by the Demon King's lineage and struggles to use much magic. He explains he can only cast spells that prevent pain or temporarily break limits. The elf woman points out there are no rules in the demon land. He exhales calmly, accepting their shared burdens. The young man clenches a piece of paper, calling out how carefree the others are. He throws the paper into the air, watching it flutter down. The paper reveals an official order to leave the territory. The elf woman urges Makio to wake up, repeating her commands softly but firmly. The young man slowly opens his eyes, startled when she suddenly appears beside him. He exclaims that she scared him, addressing her as Helly. Helly explains that Cher taught her to use sap from the yasi tree for making medicine jars. The young man questions why she didn't mention a quicker hardening material. Explaining that clay melts with heat, she acknowledges this and decides to try different methods. He protests that she came to his room just to say that, but she calmly reveals she and Cher saw something strange at the Western Creek. The young man looks puzzled. She identifies the strange thing as a zombie. The group looks toward the forest where Makio points out the location. The young man and the others exchange concerned glances. The zombie crawls forward, its upper body moving while its lower half drags behind. The young man and the woman with the hammer watch cautiously. She suggests burning and burying it just in case. But then she suddenly demands they wait, alarmed by something about the creature's movement. He recalls defeating that zombie once before, the only one he could beat in the demon land. Realizing it couldn't be completely destroyed, he asks what to do now, and the woman orders Cher to burn the zombie with magic to prevent the virus from spreading. He reminds her he already gave her a gold coin taken from the zombie, and she confirms this. He hesitates, then admits it did happen. The elf questions the significance of the gold coin, and he admits he doesn't fully understand it either. He explains the old gold coin led him to her. She reacts angrily, demanding why he didn't say so sooner. He wonders if the corpse, rotten and missing ears, could be an elf adventurer. She considers that the corpse might be her predecessor who came to explore the demon land. The coin is shown inside a jar. She examines the coin thoughtfully. She wonders if the zombie was found in Midgard. Asking if it's a city, he confirms. She explains Midgard is the city of the magical kingdom Yggdrasil, where everyone, from children to elders, can use magic, and it is more developed than other countries due to its magic tools. The elf explains the demon land once traded with the elven country, but its records vanished long ago. The woman is shocked, recalling she read about a country in the demon land in a history book. The elf urgently demands to know where that book is. The man realizes the history book mentioned must be the one he received from Sylvia and pauses thoughtfully. He reveals the demon land used to be a country where many people suddenly disappeared. The floating island was devoured by a giant magical beast, and a religion worshipping deer as gods existed. The man points out that PJ's notebook mainly describes ruins and asks them to check the last page. The elf listens intently. The man reflects on his regret for not solving the demon land's mystery. He shows a skeleton in a robe holding a book, explaining the man who lived in the cave had the notebook on his corpse, though he was reduced to bones. He mentions Peter Jefferson's grave was found there, and he and Cher discovered the floating island in the sky. The woman and the girl exchange concerned looks. The elf questions the meaning, wondering if PJ died on the flying island, but the notebook was held by someone else. The man urges them to look closely at the handwriting on the last page and the doodled magic circle. He notes the handwriting looks better, suggesting the notebook was written by two authors. The elf's eyes widen in realization as she processes this shocking revelation. He admits it's highly possible that neither Peter Jefferson nor his predecessor solved the mystery of the demon land. The elf explains that including her 11 predecessors makes 3 in total. She is certain the magical kingdom Yggdrasil existed in the demon land, recalling reading about disasters and God's messenger deer in a history book from the elven country. She summarizes that among demons, deer are messengers of devils. The girl quietly munches on food as this information sinks in. The man suggests Yggdrasil might have been hostile toward demons from across the sea. The elf questions where Midgard is located and why Yggdrasil disappeared. She solemnly declares the place is called Makio and reveals she cannot leave until solving the mystery of the demon land. The girl expresses newfound interest, while another woman nervously admits the history book has been passed down in her family for generations, feeling her destiny might be to solve the mystery. The man warns that anyone hoarding the treasure will be kicked out, asserting that even if ruins are found, he remains the landlord. The narration concludes that the mystery of the demon land remains unsolved, and everyday life continues. Helgon and Cher build a kiln, while Jennifer cleans and weaves baskets. Meanwhile, Sylvia quietly sharpens a wooden staff, preparing herself for what lies ahead. The girl quietly asks if she can craft weapons and armor from monster materials. He hesitates but encourages her, saying she can pay rent by making various items. Her face lights up with hope. She proudly shows off a massive hammer she made, and he praises her work. She then earnestly asks him to teach her how to fight. A narration reveals she has since become the demon land's armorer. He admits he isn't strong enough to teach others and questions if she's ready for survival skills in the demon land. She insists she doesn't mind and begs him to teach her. Suddenly, a huge bear roars fiercely nearby. She attacks the bear, but its thick skin renders her strikes ineffective. He watches thoughtfully, realizing her fundamentals aren't bad, but advises her to observe the enemy's weak points more carefully. She asks about weak points, recalling how she defeated the bear in the end. He advises that if an attack isn't effective, she should immediately think of another method and improve her tactics and observation. She nervously asks where he learned to fight. He explains he took courses at the Adventurers Guild but mostly learned by living in the Demon Land. She stammers, surprised he fights so well. He says he observes a lot, explaining that once you get used to watching a target, you can predict its movements. He demonstrates how bones bend inward but not outward, so escaping the attack range is a tactic. He adds that dismantling teaches a lot, and observing while finding your own method is important. She quietly repeats the word observing. He warns that when finding unfamiliar fruit in the Demon Land, the first test is to apply it to your skin to check for poison. Jennifer immediately spits out something spicy, and he urgently tells her not to eat it right away. She realizes the importance of observing. Life continues in the Demon Land until one day during lunch. A scream echoes from the West River. He tells Cher to go investigate while ordering everyone else to stay in the cave. He steels himself with determination as he and the girl dash through the forest. They arrive at a grim scene where two cloaked figures lie motionless on the rocky ground, soaked and lifeless. Shock hits him as he realizes these are people, but they show no signs of breathing. They're all dead. The girl wonders if slimes attacked them, but he notes they all drowned. He inspects another corpse, noticing a distinct mark on their arm. She points out that all the bodies bear the same mark. The girl questions if the Demon Land is under attack, but he acknowledges they can't ask the dead. They decide to search for survivors. After some time, they find another body, but it's dead as well, bearing the same mark. He worries that leaving the bodies will cause them to become zombies again, which would be troublesome. They agree to show the bodies to the captain and first check if Jennifer and the others know anything about the marks. The group looks on in stunned silence as the tattooed mark is revealed. A man wonders if the mark on the bodies belongs to the 16 of Hazes, an assassination group from the church. The girl questions if such a group really exists. The man explains that when his father was threatened by the church long ago, he heard the name. He warns that if someone with the crescent moon and cross tattoo appears, the family must abandon their home and flee. The man frets over the possibility that all 16 assassins might already be here, asking how many more could be coming. The group wonders why assassins would be in the Demon Land, and if anyone has any ideas, they consider suspects. A survivor of fallen nobility, an abandoned priest, a fugitive elf, and a demon, the man feels there's no shortage of suspects. The man insists this matter should be left to the military, saying they can't handle such a serious issue. He decides to go to the captain's place and instructs everyone else to stay behind. The scene shifts to a quiet village guarded by a wooden watchtower. A bearded man reacts with shock to the mention of the 16 of Hazes. He explains that when he found the bodies, they were already dead and preserved in sap. He asks if anyone saw the crescent moon and cross tattoo. The man sitting on the couch worries that the assassin's comrades might return for revenge if they find their dead bodies in the Demon Land. He states he's not interested in identifying the victims but needs to contact central authorities for accurate information. For now, he will take care of the bodies. The man asks if there is a bad rumor about the Demon Land since such people are coming. He then leans forward, requesting a moment to discuss something important. The young man listens intently, surprised by the seriousness. The man reveals the topic is the ownership of the Demon Land mentioned earlier. He explains that a certificate confirming this will arrive in about 3 days, making the Demon Land part of the young man's territory. The young man expresses gratitude with a bright smile. The man congratulates him, declaring he has become a noble now. The young man is shocked and confused by this sudden news. The man explains it is expected given the size of the territory and that they need him to take on this role, setting aside other matters for now. The man warns that within 3 days, private soldiers and adventurers from East Kenya might invade the Demon Land. He stresses that until the land officially becomes the young man's territory, the local military cannot intervene against any invasion. The young man realizes this is the perfect time for an attack, his expression tense and alarmed. The armored man warns that for the next 3 days until the official documents arrive, the young man must protect the Demon Land by himself. He calls this a preliminary battle for becoming a noble and stresses they are counting on him. The young man protests, overwhelmed by the responsibility, and asks how many enemies to expect. The man estimates 1,000 or 2,000 soldiers from East Kenya will attack, which shocks the young man who finds it impossible to defend against such a force with only 5 people, including the man himself. The armored man explains that if East Kenya gains more power, it could trigger a full-scale war with the Elven Kingdom, and they must prevent that at all costs, despite the offer of nobility. The man admits he only wants to protect this place. The young man looks determined as he gazes at the Demon Land, promising to do his best to defend it, fully understanding the gravity of the situation. The young man realizes the invasion by East Kenya is imminent and urgent action is needed. He explains the plan. 5 people must set traps using the terrain, as facing an army of 2,000 head-on isn't a real battle. One girl is visibly anxious about the revenge battle, while another is fired up and ready to fight. Two women express frustration over the enemy leaving their own territory to attack this cursed land. Calling it a hassle, they agree to quickly set up pit traps, acknowledging that even complaints won't stop the enemy's advance. The young man and a girl begin digging holes in the forest. The elf woman notes that everyone is digging holes together, comparing it to something from the Stone Age. The young man asks if there are any other ideas. The elf wonders if they should use magic to make the holes, but the young man firmly refuses. The girl enthusiastically suggests using magic to create the holes, but he insists on doing it without magic. The girl questions why not use magic, while the young man hesitates but agrees to try. As he places his hand on the ground, the earth suddenly erupts upward with a powerful force, startling everyone. The ground trembles violently, rocks and debris flying as the trap activates with a loud roar. A woman gasps, shocked by the strange magic she witnesses. Another woman remarks she has never seen magic like this before and wonders what kind of magic it is. Noting it resembles earth magic, the young man explains it's not magic itself. He finds the rising force and interferes with it using magic. He adds it's not particularly difficult. The girl struggles to understand, saying if he can find the energy, that means he can create magic. The young man asks if that's unusual, causing surprise among the group. The elf woman explains he's creating magic on his own terms, based purely on imagination and ignoring structure. The girl questions if magic isn't supposed to be tested and practiced. The young man looks confused and asks if that's true. The elf woman clarifies that normally one learns to chant spells first, just to find out if they can do it or not. The young man admits he can't do that, and that village elder said he lacked talent for magic. The girl realizes this means he can create magic without chanting or anything. The group reacts by shouting a weirdo, in disbelief. The elf woman advises not to accept him so easily, even if they accept he's a weirdo. She asks if he can change the terrain to create a maze, explaining that the key is how to use that ability to their advantage. The young man considers that a maze would be meaningless if enemies can bypass it. She insists it won't be like that, showing how even a simple hill can make a big difference if there are many of them. She gestures to the ground, illustrating the concept. The elf explains they can force enemies to cross several hills to reach the cave and lead them through valleys filled with traps. She adds that holding the high ground already offers a battle advantage. The young man nods, impressed, saying that strategy might actually work. He asks if there's anything else, expressing a preference to avoid direct combat if possible. The girl suggests using monsters, luring them with blood and fresh meat to fight the enemy. The young man agrees that can be done immediately and asks if there are any other ideas. The girl points out magic circles as another good option, noting she's already tried many from Peter Jefferson's notebook. The young man envisions creating explosive magic circles on the hills they make, which the elf agrees would be more effective. She proposes poisoning the enemy's food to disrupt their supply lines, mentioning swamp flowers buried for potions nearby. The young man thinks the flowers should be ripe by now. The elf reacts with surprise at the idea of poison. The elf suggests making simple pots from palm sap that melt quickly in fire and are disposable, perfect for their needs. The young man approves, saying that plan should do for now. He feels hopeful they might have a chance to win and urges everyone to prepare to start immediately. The tension rises as the group prepares for battle, sweat dripping down their faces in silent determination. The narration declares that the greatest operation in the Demon Land is about to begin. With preparations complete, the group gathers around a campfire, the leader urging everyone to eat something first. The elf's ear twitches at a distant sound, signaling the approach of something ominous. The distant sound of drums grows louder, stirring anxiety. The group debates the enemy's numbers and readiness, unsure if 2,000 people can truly fill the plain. The leader orders an evacuation to the top of the hill and warns everyone to avoid stepping on the magic circles. 1 hour later, the group remains vigilant atop the hill, watching the horizon as the enemies draw near. The narration confirms the impending confrontation as the enemies approach. Panic rises as he shouts that the enemy still hasn't arrived. The elf suggests faint screams and battle sounds might mean they're fighting monsters in the forest across the stream. They speculate the enemy struggles to move with so many people and might even die before reaching the Demon Land. He notes their struggle near the Demon Land, while two women decide to bake bread in the cave as they wait, both volunteering. Night falls with nothing happening, so they decide to return to the cave. He asks if this was like when East Kenya was invaded, and the woman explains multiple traitors within the castle sabotaged the defense. Many bribed with money. The elf contemplates that there might be traitors among them too, while he quietly processes this. Inside the cave, the group relaxes but tension remains. The elf firmly says it can't be true. Suddenly, he reveals he forgot to mention that when the battle ends, he might become a noble. The group reacts with surprise and curiosity, their expressions shifting as they absorb this news. He asks if anyone has ever been a noble, prompting the group to raise their hands. The elf warns associating with unreliable people is unwise. While the woman beside her pouts, he questions if Helgon was a noble, and the group's raised hands include 3 out of 4 people, shocking him especially that even Cher is among them. He asks what it truly means to be a noble. While she nervously struggles with her bread, the others guess wildly. Managing territory, making lots of babies, risking life for the country, he demands practical answers. They explain nobles must work hard at night, develop infrastructure, trade with other territories, and train daily in war tactics. Night falls with no enemy invasion, and the group rotates guard so others can rest. The next morning, a sudden explosion jolts him awake. He wonders if it was one of the magic circles on the hill, and she confirms it probably was. They rush to the hill and discover a wild boar caught in their trap, now dead and smoking. He insists they can't leave the corpse lying around or monsters will destroy the traps. He suggests scattering the bodies elsewhere since nothing can be done. Suddenly, she appears, prompting him to ask when she arrived. She points across the stream at the borders of the demon land. Declaring the enemy's presence there, he reacts with sharp focus, realizing the threat is near. Armored soldiers prepare for battle in the forest, weapons drawn and ready. One soldier adjusts a mask adorned with multiple eyes, signaling a leader or mage among them. The soldiers begin chopping down trees with axes and mallets. Working swiftly, Hayes asks what they are doing, and a woman nervously replies they plan to build a bridge to cross over. Another woman adds that the saying goes, "Can't fight on an empty stomach." Sylvia carries a basket of smoked meat and nuts, urging everyone to eat, despite the tension. They prepare a barbecue. One girl worries about the timing, but another insists if danger arises, they'll use monsters to defend. Hayes warns the smell will attract monsters, but for now, they focus on the meal. The armored force marches forward, led by the masked figure commanding them to charge into battle. They split into teams once inside the forest, advancing with swords and shields raised. Nearby, the group watches the soldiers ignite a fire, signaling the start of the conflict. The armored soldiers charge fiercely into battle, their swords and spears clashing against large, gelatinous monsters. Despite their shields, some knights are struck and stagger back. Nearby, strange ape-like creatures sit quietly in the forest, unnoticed by the combatants. The battle intensifies as the soldiers are attacked by monstrous apes and flying demons. One knight is knocked down by a savage blow while others fend off winged foes swooping from above. The soldiers rally, urged to press forward without hesitation. The knights push through a narrow mountain pass, advancing with determination. Some fall as they are struck down in close combat, their armor clattering to the ground. A ghostly figure with a glowing face watches silently from the shadows. The soldiers are suddenly bombarded by giant wasp-like creatures, forcing them to retreat. A cloaked figure with a turban and mask raises a hand, commanding the chaos to stop. He declares his intent to incinerate the enemies with magic, halting the battle abruptly. From their vantage point, the elf asks if the magician is the enemy commander, suggesting that killing him could end the invasion. The elf knocks an arrow, ready to shoot, as the other agrees to try. The arrow flies swiftly through the air, striking the magician in the chest. The armored soldiers shout that their magician has been hit. The elf, however, admits she missed the target. The soldiers are alarmed, questioning where the arrow came from. The magician demands the soldiers protect him with their lives, sweat dripping down his masked face. The soldiers raise their shields and swords, preparing to advance. The magician orders them to continue advancing without rest and to retreat to the other side of the river. A cloaked figure watches from the woods, smirking and commenting on the commander's resolve. A group of armored adventurers stands ready by the riverbank. One asks if it's their turn now, and another confirms. The two watching from a distance spot them and recognize the adventurers. One gasps, realizing those are his father's enemies. He confirms without doubt that there's no mistake. When asked if Sylvia knows them, he reveals they are his father's foes. The 3 adventurers are revealed as the main force of the rebellion army, standing confidently with weapons in hand, prepared for battle. The knights struggle as monstrous creatures swarm around them, their spears raised defensively. The soldiers realize the area is teeming with monsters and traps, making it impossible to break through. A man with long hair and a scarred face watches the chaos with a grim expression. Blood splatters across the knight's armor, shocking them as they recognize it as beast blood. A woman calmly holds a container of the blood. The scarred man grips his sword tightly, declaring that retreat is not an option and warning that anyone who tries to cross the bridge will be cut down. A massive spiked mace crashes down, breaking the ground. The injured knights stare in shock, questioning the identity of their assailant. One armored soldier, holding a chain and shield, commands the others to move quickly, stating he is not playing around. Meanwhile, The young man sits quietly, contemplating the situation. The young man notices the soldiers' behavior has changed drastically. The knights and beasts attack relentlessly, drawn by the blood, killing enemies effortlessly. Wolves accompany the soldiers in battle. The scarred man looks on seriously as the young man wonders aloud what all this violence is truly for. A man with long hair and a fur cloak grips his sword firmly, ordering to trigger every trap to clear a safe path for infiltration. He insists that's the soldiers' role. Despite the knights' bloodied armor and their inability to match the beasts, the soldiers are commanded to run to the top of the hill for safety. An explosion erupts on the hill, sending smoke and debris flying. A knight's armored foot lands heavily as chaos unfolds. The soldiers, accompanied by a large bear, retreat cautiously while the man and a woman watch the scene with tense expressions. More explosions detonate across the hilltop, throwing dirt and rocks into the air. A young man and a woman observe the blasts intently. Their backs turn to the destruction. The surrounding forest trembles under the force of the blasts. Additional explosions ripple through the area, shaking the ground violently. The young woman shields her face from the flying debris, while the man remains focused on the unfolding chaos as the blasts continue to tear through the terrain. Frustration grips him as he curses the situation, questioning the morality of soldiers being used as mere pawns. The woman wonders if that means they have no right to survive. The elf confirms the soldiers are expendable, but warns that if the enemy keeps overwhelming them with numbers, they will soon be overrun here too. He calls for a change of plans, urging everyone to do what they can on their end. A young woman named Makio reveals her burning desire to personally kill her father's murderers. He acknowledges her pain but insists it's impossible and she shouldn't act on it. She listens intently, conflicted but determined. His gaze sharpens as he notes the strength of a man with a sinister aura. Doubting Sylvia can defeat him head-on, concerned, he warns that this threat could ruin their entire plan. He commands everyone to follow his plan immediately, rallying them with raised fists. The young woman looks on, anxious but resolute. From a hilltop, he asks Sylvia if she remains dissatisfied. Warning that failure to follow the plan properly will lead to trouble, Makio, struggling with her emotions, suddenly brightens with an idea, her resolve reignited as she prepares to act. Two women rush a cart loaded with meat and food, urging each other to hurry. One declares they've brought all the meat and food they could find. A man agrees and commands everyone to move to the south side. He presses his hand down firmly, signaling readiness. The man explains the plan, using the terrain to create a U-shaped passage on the south side, then scattering food at the dead end to lure enemies. The cliffside looms above as he crouches, preparing the trap. Nearby, monstrous creatures growl, attracted by the scent. Various monsters begin to gather, including a green tiger, lamia, golden bat, and a forest giant. The man watches anxiously as the creatures are drawn by the bait, confirming the trap is working. The man asks an elf named Helly about the enemy situation. She reports that blood-soaked soldiers are running deep in the forest, falling into traps with explosions happening repeatedly. The man focuses, stating that now it's all about timing, though Helly warns this won't last much longer. The traps set earlier are nearly exhausted, and the explosions on the hill have ceased. The pits remain filled with fallen soldiers. The final destination is the Field of Sleep Flowers, where the surviving soldiers are likely unconscious by now. At that moment, a man stands ready, sweat on his face, preparing for what comes next. A group of warriors, including a scarred man wielding a large sword and a woman with a bow, prepare to move forward. The man acknowledges the soldiers who carved out a path for them and warns not to let their guard down. The woman advises proceeding carefully, watching the traits of the demon land's creatures and plants. A young woman concentrates, building up a massive amount of magical power as others watch anxiously. Another woman reminds that Makio's signal hasn't come yet, urging patience. The group remains tense and alert, ready for the next move. Hidden behind foliage, a young man seizes the moment, determined to act. He focuses on cutting off the enemy's retreat, eyes sharp and ready as he prepares to strike. Magical energy surges as a massive explosion reshapes the terrain, forming a large circular crater. The young man, breathing heavily and sweating, declares the task complete but admits he exhausted a great deal of magical power. He cautiously moves forward, alert to his surroundings. A bright signal flares above the forest, catching the attention of a woman who urgently calls out to Cheru, announcing that the awaited signal has arrived. A rugged man reacts sharply to the news, while the woman's determined gaze sharpens, signaling the moment to act has come. The woman raises her hands, unleashing a powerful magical attack that sends a wave of energy and smoke outward. Nearby, various monstrous creatures, including a tiger-striped beast and a spider-like entity, react with surprise and alarm to the sudden assault. The monstrous creatures, including a muscular humanoid and several beasts, brace themselves as the magical flames roar around them. One tiger claws at the rocky walls, while the others retreat deeper into the cave, their growls and cries echoing as the fire encroaches, signaling a fierce confrontation is underway. The battle intensifies as the man dashes forward, noting how busy the situation has become. From his vantage point, he spots the enemy forces gathering below. A woman urgently calls out to him. Addressing him as Makio, he catches his breath, preparing himself for what's next. A plan unfolds as a rugged man declares he will use magic to flatten part of the passage that holds the trapped beasts. The map confirms the location of the enemy cluster. The man's expression sharpens with resolve as he stands ready with his sword, accompanied by a woman and armored soldiers. The trapped beasts emerge, a terrifying array of monstrous creatures including a giant turtle, a bear, serpents, and various other fearsome animals. The group reacts with shock and alarm at the overwhelming sight. The woman voices her disbelief, questioning what is happening. The man realizes the deadliest trap in the demon land is not a device but the beasts themselves. Now unleashed and ready to attack, the monstrous horde advances fiercely, their presence a living, lethal snare that threatens all who face them. The leader orders a retreat, warning there are too many enemies and to fall back to the river. He notices a massive wall blocking their escape route and freezes in shock. A monstrous turtle snarls nearby, while a woman with a bow urges him to get away. The woman swiftly kills attacking insects and a hyena-like beast, but the man realizes their only options are to fight the monster horde or escape through a narrow hole they left open. He grimaces, preparing to crawl through the small passage. Standing before the cave entrance, the leader is surprised to see a familiar figure emerge. The younger man admits he knew the leader was still alive. Calling him tough, the leader responds quietly, questioning if it really is him. The younger man accuses the leader of trespassing and demands he leave immediately. The leader calmly acknowledges the accusation, recognizing the younger man as the master of the demon land. The older man declares that killing will settle their conflict, but the younger man protests, shocked at the bloodthirsty attitude and begging to be heard. Suddenly, the older man charges forward, smashing the ground with his sword as the younger man braces himself. A rock nearly hits the younger man's head, prompting him to harden his arms with earth magic. He recognizes the serious power behind the attack and prepares to defend himself with his sword. The younger man uses wind magic to slightly deflect the older man's sword tip, narrowly avoiding injury. He swiftly moves to evade the next strike, leaping into the air as the older man swings his sword with full force. The younger man acknowledges the older man's strength and wonders if his magic will hold out. The older man uses strange techniques, but only defends without attacking. Both are puzzled by the older man's hesitation, questioning why he shows no sign of offense despite his power. The older man laughs heartily, realizing the younger man has led him into a trap. He acknowledges the terrifying cunning behind setting pitfalls even during battle. The younger man narrowly avoids falling into a deep pit hidden in the ground, noting the widespread traps but sensing something more. The younger man, sweating and tense, resolves that once he understands the trick, there is nothing to fear. The older man charges with a fierce yell, swinging his sword down with deadly intent. The younger man's eyes widen in shock as the attack comes at him. A woman swings a large hammer fiercely, smashing the ground near the younger man. He focuses, explaining that holes aren't just for making people fall. The woman's determined expression sharpens as she attacks. The younger man's gaze is serious as he reveals the deeper purpose of the traps. The older man grins confidently as he strikes, explaining that holes can also serve as hiding places. The younger man listens intently, surprised by this insight. The older man's face is fierce and focused, emphasizing the dual nature of the traps as both pitfalls and concealment spots. Relief washes over the young man's face as he exhales, realizing the battle has ended. The defeated older man lies motionless, unresponsive. The forest is calm again, but a sudden scream pierces the silence. The young man stands before a seated figure wearing a mask and elaborate robes, who asks if he still wants to proceed. Nearby soldiers exchange uneasy glances. The young man reflects that by returning the wounded and dead, they secured a promise from the enemy to never interfere with the demon land again. With that, the defeated forces fled in disgrace, ending the war between the demon land and East Kenya. Days after the battle's aftermath, the young man arrives at a military training facility to report. The commander greets him with admiration and gratitude. He receives the official deed to the demon land, symbolizing the territory's transfer. Outside, the forest stands peaceful under the sky. The young man explains there's a ceremony he must attend to become a noble, involving the king placing a sword on his shoulder. a woman questions the need to travel all the way to the royal capital. He estimates the round trip will take about 10 days and asks the group to manage things while he's away. The group listens intently, preparing for his absence. Early the next morning, he departs for the royal capital. While he is away, various schemes and thoughts run rampant among the four who stayed behind. But that story is skipped for now. Time passes under a bright sky. At a roadside stall, an older man with a mustache watches as the young man orders 2 sausages and 2 loaves of bread. The man remarks on the large amount of luggage and asks where he is headed. The young man replies he's going to the demon land to the east. The older man laughs, warning if he's trying to get himself killed. He mentions hearing of a noble called the Frontier Count established in the demon land. The young man reveals he is that Frontier Count. The older man advises against traveling without a carriage or guards, but the young man explains he left them behind because running is faster. Suddenly, the young man dashes off, surprising the older man. Walking through the countryside, the young man reflects that the demon land's image isn't great and that he needs specialty products to govern properly. He realizes he also needs to solve the mystery of Peter Jefferson, uncover the secrets of the Sky Nobles, and understand the mystery of Midgard. He sighs, overwhelmed by how much there is to do. Standing on a ridge, the young man looks out toward the distant mountain and declares he can see it now. He reflects quietly that he has managed to get this far. The view expands to show the vast forest and hills ahead as he resolves to somehow manage from here on as well. Approaching a group of 4 waiting figures, he asks if there were any problems while he was away. They greet him warmly, excited and relieved by his return. Noting he brought many souvenirs, the group includes a young boy, 2 women, and an elf woman, all smiling and welcoming him back. The young man smiles gently and announces, "I'm home," as the group beams with happiness, one waving enthusiastically in greeting.